We take to a very open map, one where you cannot hide. We kick off this third place decider on Prairie.
Very, very open map over here. LucifroN with the Abbasids, Puppypaw with the Ottomans. This is the third place match over here. LucifroN, of course, champion of one of the recent major events here in AoE4, whereas for Puppypaw, he is still seeking that first top 3 finish in his career. Has had some top 4s, yet to secure a third place for himself. But he has a pretty good record against LucifroN, not as good as he had against his brother Vortex, though.
No, I mean, that was an incredible stat, right? Only losing once against Vortex historically. LucifroN's fared a bit better. And I think it comes down to playstyles. Is like LucifroN's more of a raiding, not all-in type engager. I think Puppypaw handles those overly aggressive players quite well. He has the ability to be the aggro player himself, but he's also fairly good at turtling and playing for that mid game instead. That's why I think this is going to be a much scarier matchup. I mean, that one was, right? In the end, Vortex took it. But like historically, based on what we're seeing here, I am expecting 5 games. And well, this is an interesting map to open up with, right? On one side, we have Ottomans that I don't really feel like we've seen them rank clearly on Prairie historically, up against Iobids that are too new to rank clearly on Prairie. So this kind of has the weird feelings around it, especially considering that when I look at this map, Prairie in particular, I think Iobids have a lot more options in terms of tech choices that aren't as efficient on other maps. I mean, we yesterday saw a logistics play come out in Castle Age to try and counter HRE relic grabbing. I have to see if we get something similar here, maybe a fast castle build from both.
Yeah, we've seen a lot of fast castles on this map, and there's a lot of merit when you think about it. It is awkward when you look at the initial layout of this map. It's not something that you think it's obvious, going for fast castle on such an open map. But because of this openness, you are really inclined to play into Knights. You're inclined to play into Relic Control, potentially. And that's something that kind of supports the idea of playing a fast castle here, especially when you have the Iobids here. It's going to be a military wing opening here. Desert Raiders for LucifroN. We've seen these units. They can be very oppressive, can act as a Camel Rider, can act as a Camel Archer as well. But right now, they'll be used as a Camel Archer unit. It's going to be great to pick off those initial Ottoman Spearmen, and it's also going to be great to harass that forward gold mine from Puppypaw.
Yeah, and we've seen this exact same opening out of LucifroN yesterday in his series against Beastie QT in the semifinals. He did go for the military wing on this particular map. That was against the HRE, but I think the logic here is kind of a similar role. In the Ottomans, if this is a fast castle targeted build, there's not going to be many range units. I think that's actually something that's very smart that LucifroN has identified with this map. Due to the lack of wood, scaling range units is not necessarily a good idea. Not very often anyway. Which means that Desert Raiders actually fare a lot better here than most other maps because the thing that counters them is ranged units.
Yeah, that's a great point that you bring up, indeed. You don't want to commit very heavily into the Archer line here, although if you're playing the Ottomans, you can technically justify that a little better, just getting those units for free. But you probably don't want to be spending your military school time on Archers. You want to go on Sipahi or more premium units in the long run. But at the end of the day, as Vodka's highlighting to us, just for a brief moment, LucifroN having a great haul of sheep here. Not so much for Puppypaw, but he's going to be more than happy with what he has. But yeah, just going back to this topic of the archers, as you said, when you play into Camel Archers, the hard counter to that is going to be mass archers from the Ottomans. It's difficult to justify it on a map that is so scarce on wood.
Yeah, and it's actually interesting that, back to that sheep point quickly. This is already a better start than yesterday. I think Puppypaw had a harsh time in that series when it came to sheepdom. One thing that I think is important to expand upon that is the fact that when we're looking at these two civs and the way they play the maps, Madrissa is going to be a really big boon for the Ottomans, especially if we are getting one of those fast castle builds that we said is pretty atypical here. One thing that is interesting is the idea of the Iobids being the aggro civ out into the map, especially with this military wing. That's important because it would mean that you're basically Abbasids, which means berries are good here, right? So could see a game where Puppypaw ends up kind of condensed in his base while LucifroN sets tempo, especially considering we've got Camel versus Spear on the opening.
Yeah, defensive tower coming up here for Puppypaw, but this is an interesting placement for it. It's on the backside of the gold mine, so you gotta be cautious because this might not be able to reach the Camel Archers coming from the front. And this is always an issue when you place tower behind your gold mine. Units, especially ones with long range, can easily pick off your villagers despite you having a tower on that actual gold mine.
That is true. Luckily for him, the camels are more annoying on the go, not for the range, right? So I think this is a game where he kind of gets away from it because camels are like, what is it, 3.5 or 4? I can't remember if they have the same as the camel archers, but it is very low. As you can see, the moment he gets in range, I mean, this is a unit that doesn't have much health, 120 HP. They come with 5 melee armor, but 0 ranged armor, which means one outpost quite often completely blocks this type of assault attempt.
Oh yeah, it certainly does. These camel archers, or these desert raiders, used as camel archers, they're not as tanky as the original Abbasid units, camel archers, camel riders. So it's a lot easier to kill them, especially with a tower when it's garrisoned, or even town center fire. So for LucifroN, a lot comes down to good micro here. But again, as you kind of touched on this before, it's really not the primary show here. He is working his way towards Castle Age, and this unit is just there to make sure that Puppypaw, you know, has a little pressure on him here in Feudal Age.
Just keep him honest, you know? Just make sure that he's not doing anything weird or too wonderful. LucifroN, honestly, at this stage, I think you just go for a slower Castle Age and get something better. Like, logistics here is really good. There's just spears. This map is just so ripe for logistics play, but it looks like he wants that faster tech-up timing. It is quite a bit faster. You save about 45 seconds on your tech-up time, as well as the resources. So Castle Age on the horizon for LucifroN. Meanwhile, Puppypaw only halfway there, so he's going to still be quite some time off.
Yeah, this is a very nice Castle Age timing here for the LucifroN. And I think the alarming thing for Puppypaw is that this push that we are going to see here from LucifroN is going to be heavily timing-based. And Ottomans don't like that. Ottomans like games where they have time to build up their forces with the military schools. And this is not something that LucifroN is going to give to Puppypaw here. Desert Trader is going to pick off most of these spears, and when those are gone, the only thing that Puppypaw is going to have on the field is going to be a matter.
Yeah, the tough part about this as well that I'm seeing is, like, it's not just the fact that Almonds need time to build up. It's like they can be very fast if they hit that Castle Age. Yeah, he's still some way off. One upside he does have is all those sheep you just saw there. That's really important because it does mean that he can start pumping hard into Knights. Not really good for taking a direct fight against what's probably going to be Camel Lancers here, but could be a very effective way of raiding into the Ibids, considering what we just mentioned, that LucifroN's probably going to want to be playing on the berries outside of his base as this game moves forward.
Yeah, I love this civilization pick here from LucifroN, though. Camo Lancer is a great unit to deal with enemy cavalry on an open map that is just playing very heavily into cavalry anyways. But it's also a unit that's great for raiding. It's just going to be that 2-in-1 punch that LucifroN needs. Puppypaw is going to be aging up here on the front line with that Mehmed Imperial Armory. He has to be a little cautious here, because LucifroN could easily try to challenge that position and slow down this age up.
Well, he's poking him right now, forcing him behind the Mehmed. Now that there is arrow slits on the tower, unlikely we get the dive in time. He has got Lancers pumping, but they've only just came out. They've got to cross the entire map. With 12 villagers going, Puppypaw understands this timing window. He won't be blocked out of his tech up, but right now, he doesn't look very threatening. If you look at the layout of his base, he's got, what, one military school, a Rax, hasn't even dropped stables yet, hasn't even gone into archery ranges. So even if he wanted to rush into them, he's a little bit lacking on the wood front, which means these Camel Lancers should find targets.
Oh, they certainly will, and this is just the first layer of LucifroN's setup. He's already getting some dervishes out, notoriously quick when it comes to picking up relics. And even if he cannot inflict massive casualties on the enemy base or anti-enemy eco here, just confining Puppypaw in his own base ensures that LucifroN is going to grab most of the relics available on this map.
You can see the issue here as well. Puppypaw hadn't even been gathering stone this whole time, right? That was him just trying to rush into the Castle Age, which means he now has to waste time getting wood and stone together for passive production, when realistically what you need is active production right now. Dervish is already moving out and picking up the first of the relics. Second one is being pumped soon. And as you said, these are mounted religious units. You have to think of it as the same timings we've seen out of Roost before. They are that quick at absorbing everything on the map. And I love what you said about these Camel Lancers. The cool thing about them in this map particularly, you said it's open. The cool thing about that is it means they can usually get a maximum range charge off, which can very quickly snipe out villages.
Yeah, for now, Puppypaw is just going to be idled out here, but that's already good value here for LucifroN. Accidentally shoots the boar here. That probably must have been a misclick, but yeah, you look at Puppypaw's base, you feel like the most significant resource he's lacking right now is time. He just doesn't have the time to build up his forces. That first Mangonel is still very far away. He's still confined into his own base. And LucifroN, he's already picking up the relics, although so far it's only one relic for LucifroN, so he's definitely taking his time with this. But behind this, I just don't see Puppypaw being able to break out of his base right now. The moment he does, his villagers will be exposed.
Will attempt a break in there by LucifroN. We'll have to rear away. Now, something to keep in mind is actually left the Camel Raiders to start trading out with the crossbows, which actually isn't a bad fight at all for them to take. They even actually just find one Spearman guarding on the gold, so more idle time there as the army gets baited out of range. I think they're on auto-aggro behavior right there, so good fight right here for LucifroN. One of the Camel Lancers is brought low, but there isn't a focused fire, which means he will get away. That means those dervishes could come and heal later.
Yeah, Matter helping out the Spearman here a little with the movement boost, but again, LucifroN, he doesn't need to get a lot of value out of these raids. He is grabbing a lot of ecotech, something that Puppypaw is also missing. Relics are now coming in large quantities. He's going to be up to 3. And he also has a lot of mobility advantage here, KP. Puppypaw has a scary army now. A lot of spears, a lot of crossbows. Great to deal with the army that LucifroN has. But it's a slow-moving army, whereas LucifroN can just keep running circles around the enemy base. And especially when you consider LucifroN known to be so oppressive with knights, specifically with the French, he's one of the best players when it comes to using these small groups of raiding units, Lancers, Knights, whichever is available to him, to just harass the enemy essentially non-stop.
Yeah, and the issue right now is, like, if you look at the two army comps, Puppypaw is technically a bit stronger because he counters, right? But it's one thing to counter, it's one thing to be able to use it. Right now, he can't come out of his base. A very big issue with Prairie that tends to lead towards cavalry civs always winning is that you can't easily wall yourself in until about 20 minutes in. That's the state of the game we're looking at here. So if you think about that, in the next 9 minutes, what can LucifroN do? He can easily get 5 relics on the map. He can easily just pick up all these sacred sites. And then from there, easily force Puppypaw to come out of his base. And when he does, look at what LucifroN's got waiting for him. It's going to be a transition into archers. This is something that might surprise Puppypaw, considering how difficult this is to do on this map, and how, so far, LucifroN has only shown signs of a mobile army.
Yeah, that army of archers could easily be very surprising here. And don't forget, as you said, wood is kind of a premium resource on this map, but that's more applicable in the long run, and as long as you don't have a lot of map control. LucifroN does have map control, so he does have a consistent influx of wood. And at the same time, for the time being, he's got a lot of wood available close to his base. And worst case scenario, he has a lot of passive gold income. In the short term, he can use that to just buy some wood if he really needs it. I feel like the position that Puppypaw is in right now is not something I envy. His army is growing though, and that's something that LucifroN is going to have to respect. This is turning into a death ball here for the Ottomans. Heavy on the spears, heavy on the crossbows, buffed by Metters. But as you said, if we have sufficient amount of archers here for LucifroN, he can decimate this army.
Yeah, and the thing is that Puppypaw will be playing blind into it. What makes it worse still, you're playing against the Irobids, and that's exactly what I was about to highlight. Springald on the backside here. This is where this matchup for the Ottomans, you know, typically at this point, they kind of have siege edge, right? Because they build them for free. Not really true in a game where you've given all this free gold over to LucifroN, and he's playing a Civ that doesn't even need a siege workshop to counter you in that department. 2 Springalds being built up by the Irobids. Wouldn't be surprised if he considers adding in a Maganel as well, considering half of Puppypaw's army is crossbows.
All 3 sacred sites now under the control of LucifroN as well, trying to force Puppypaw out of his base here. Holding all 3 is going to be a challenge, but we've seen this numerous times, KP. 10 minutes feels like it's a long time, but it actually goes by very, very quickly here. So Puppypaw is going to need to consider decapping one of these, and he doesn't have mobility here. He's got a very slow-moving army, so the only way that he's going to decap one of these sacred sites is by a direct push towards the middle one, probably.
Yeah, and the interesting thing at this stage, the sacred sites actually aren't LucifroN's win condition. They're a tactic within the strategy. The whole goal of these sacred sites is to force Puppypaw to commit out of his base. And when he does, you peel off 6 or 7 of these lancers, you head in. You go and hop into the hen house as a wolf while the farmer isn't looking, right? And that's the risk Puppypaw's approaching here. Decent-sized army could take a good engagement if he can ever find it. But right now, LucifroN isn't going to give it over easily. Archers, nice little dodge there, so no hit with the Mango. And nice trade out. The Springal's instantly taking out that Mango. So Puppypaw no longer threatening these archers. Charge comes in for the Lancers, just going to wrap around. Spearman count not looking that scary right now because actually Puppypaw, he peeled off a few to go on the left and right flank. So instead of holding this area, now at risk of folding back and off the gold, Lancer's going to get the charge through onto the crossbows. And the chase is on here. Eco is about to be exposed. He can't really run and hide from this area. He tries to shift the villagers away now, but the dive continues, and the Lancer count looks a bit too strong. Puppypaw likely to hold on a little bit after this, but realistically being reset to 0.
And that's bad, because LucifroN is still holding all 3 sacred sites over here. Again, as you said, it's not the win condition for him, it's the sideshow. But it's a damn good sideshow over here for him. It's a great diversion, as you said. Not all of the spearmen were here to help in this fight. And it was a great diversion, allowing LucifroN to just dive over here. He didn't manage to kill a lot of villagers. He just has 4 worker kills in this entire game. But for the last 30 seconds, half of Puppypaw's eco has been idled. That is great value, especially when you consider that LucifroN has 4 relics against the none of Puppypaw and 3 sacred sites.
Yeah, and it'd be 5 relics if LucifroN had ever scouted that south side, right? That's the only reason it's not even worse than it is, but it doesn't get much worse than this right now for Puppypaw. Trying to reboom into the crossbows hard, but if I'm not mistaken, this is just the point where LucifroN will get a new Springald and then go into a Manjanique. Because then you have the ability to just crush Puppypaw's army, but on top of that, you also have the ability to start blowing up his base. Charge comes in, decent little trade there up against the crossbows. Dervish count, it has been reduced entirely. LucifroN is reproducing those. Love to see this, by the way. Dervishes have been the devs' plead to the community to use healing more, clearly. That mass heal, just 1 Dervish after a fight, can get you so much value when you've got sizable armies.
And when you have a lot of premium units like Camel Lancers, keeping those alive is a priority. That's not so much a thing anymore for LucifroN. He's down to just 2 Camel Lancers, but he's willing to send in additional archers over here, picking off some more vills. He's now up to 9 worker kills, shutting down this entire gold mine as well. And we're looking at 85 population from LucifroN against just 60 from Puppypaw. As you said, it was a strong reset here for Puppy. And now he's struggling with numbers once again. It takes time to build up those forces using the military schools, and he is not going to be given time here by LucifroN.
Oof, now he has to come out and play in the mid-map, right, away from the emplacement defenses as well. And these archers just going to trade really well up against the crossbows. The Dervish heal on top of it just makes it even worse, makes you a bit more sour about it. Luckily for him, Puppypaw will be able to keep that 1 Springald alive, as it's only 1 camel. Trade out comes in his favor, but this... I mean, this is the only thing that's trading in his favor. The rest of this game is looking grim. We're 6 minutes away from a Sacred Site victory. Puppypaw now lacks the military to even try to decap. If he doesn't have everything defending here, it's just going to be more eco dead. It's been now up to 13 worker kills in total. Then you also have to add in all the gold trickle. Fair to say that LucifroN is about 15 to 20 eco ahead.
Easily. And as we touched on this before, the sacred sites are not a win condition right now. They are something that help LucifroN confine Puppy in his base and potentially find weaknesses in his defense. But in a few minutes' time, they suddenly become a win condition, and right now, Puppypaw is struggling to break out of his base with 6 minutes left on the timer for the sacred sites. LucifroN even bumps into this final relic with his camels, so don't be surprised if he's going to be up to 5 relics in a moment.
Oh, this is about to be a grim Titan for Puppypaw, though. Check what just happened there. The Manjanique got primed, but Puppypaw just bought the Janissary points. So he has even more range units. They're even more susceptible. And this is detail that LucifroN knows because they were chasing off those flanking camels. Behind this, LucifroN, just in case this game does go later, already insulating himself with a second TC. But make no mistake about it, folks. If this engagement pops and Puppypaw does not have Springald momentum, as in at least 1 extra, that Manjanique is going to hold Puppypaw's entire army hostage.
Even without the Manjanique, it's a tough matchup for those Janissaries. Archers, they are really good when it comes to picking off those very fragile ranged units, the Janissaries those are. They're not even here in this engagement. Spearmen get picked off way too easily. Crossbows fired from the back line, but this is not an army that is capable of beating mass archers right now. Only a handful of men-at-arms in this engagement. They do have the second layer of range defense, though, so it takes some time for LucifroN to deplete these men-at-arms. And it looks like Puppypaw is able to break out of his base for the moment. Question is, can he maintain this momentum?
Yeah, that was actually a really good exploitation of the hill effect on Prairie, because he's on a little bit high ground. So it didn't look like LucifroN saw that the Scrimmers were getting in range to snipe out his Manjanique. So good little bit of play there, using his own defensive layout to his advantage. Allows Puppypaw to push back. But now that you've revealed this men-at-arms hand, it's likely to get countered. In fact, we can see it's going to get countered. There's already a build-up. However, the counter-attack comes in. Finally, Puppypaw is able to bleed some Iobid eco. Only a little bit, though. Does at least spot the transition. The question is, what can he do about this transition?
He also spotted the second DC, so he knows that he must be very heavily behind in terms of economy. Finds a lot of value here in these villagers. They're running the wrong way over here, might get themselves cornered. Puppypaw, the last few moments has been spectacular for him. He's still very much fighting an uphill battle here, facing 5 relics, but he managed to decap the Sacred Sites, started to hit LucifroN's eco, and don't forget, he is behind in terms of eco, but he does have that free production from the Ottomans, and that's starting to kick in now.
Yeah, and it's a little bit sloppy the way this is played on the flank by LucifroN, right? Well, it's sloppy because it looks like an error, but it's a forced error. And what happened here is realistically, LucifroN should have peeled off some of the archers to chase off these Janissaries, but Puppypaw rushed out on the center when he needed to do that. It was just a great read, a 1-2 punch by Puppypaw to get the advantage in 2 different engagements. However, after that black is set, and we've moved on from it, we've reached this phase where Puppypaw has to start moving out of his base. And LucifroN just scouted that with the camels, so Puppypaw may need to consider some wolves, and it looks like he has built some up on the right side of his base.
Yeah, slowly but surely the game is stabilizing for Puppypaw, but one thing to look out for here is that his eco is still somewhat fragile. In fact, you look at his wood eco, it's underwhelming. His food eco is very lackluster as well, so it is for LucifroN, by the way. Gold income is neck and neck, actually, and that's pretty decent for Puppypaw for the time being, but he needs to find a way to finish this game quickly, otherwise he doesn't have a good matchup against 5 relics in the long run.
Yeah, it's kind of a chicken and egg type situation. What's better, right? Is it the relics or is it going to be the passive production as the game goes on? If we do eventually get to a fleshed out 140 eco on each side, I actually think the Ottomans just have this on lock in an Imperial Age situation. The upgrades are just scary, and compared to the Abbasids, the Ibids are more about these peak timings rather than this consistent trend upwards. So that's something to keep in mind. The position was really good by LucifroN, but now it's starting to fall apart. He's getting caught on all these pocket economies. The men-at-arms are starting to leak out, and LucifroN, this probably should have happened sooner. He's now only transitioning crossbows. Despite having all that gold, he waited this long to do so.
First time in this game that Puppypaw has the army numbers advantage, and you see population is now neck and neck. There was a big difference in population like 5 minutes ago. Now it's head-to-head, and this is what you get from the Ottomans. You give them time, they will be able to build up a terrifying force, and you look at the army value down at the bottom of the screen, it's double right now for Puppypaw. A considerable advantage in that department, and I think we're getting very close to the domain where the Ottomans can really shine, leveraging all those free units, now having a huge amount of Janissaries mixed in as well. And I'm no longer convinced that this is a good game for LucifroN, despite him having 5 relics still.
Yeah, and if you look at the state of the map and what he's now doing, this is LucifroN home, right? He doesn't want to be out on the mid-map anymore. He's started to lose complete control. Sacred Sites are being all decapped. There's a push in towards his secondary TC. His men-at-arms, he's at least now finally getting the Gulamants together, but the crossbow mass that counters that is what I'm really worried about here. Manjanique shots coming in, Spiral Trade is good. Mango hit to the backside, a good warp into the archers, but traded out there. Siege mass now in favor of LucifroN. This should force Puppypaw back.
Something was up with Puppypaw's Springolds in that engagement. I'm not sure if he just accidentally misclicked them and he shot some archers with them, but he lost 2 Springolds without damaging any of the enemy siege weapons. Something must have been up with those Springolds there for Puppy. Means that he wasn't able to take out that Manjanique, gets repelled for the time being.
Now, he has still got these little raids on the outskirts that he hasn't cleared up. This is a breathing moment for LucifroN to try and do so. However, when he chases with archers, it's not effective. Also, keep in mind that LucifroN's point of raiding in this game has passed. He has 1 Lancer total. So don't expect Puppypaw to just be dented in the sides anymore. This is going to start turning into direct engagements. And that's where Micro really is going to be the difference maker. And moments like what you just highlighted could just break the game entirely open one way or the other.
Army numbers getting close as well, and LucifroN does have enough stone to drop a keep. A much-needed keep potentially, because longevity is still on his side. If he can outlast LucifroN here in Castle Age, he's going to be in a great spot going into Imperial with all those relics available. But he needs to make sure he doesn't get overwhelmed here by Puppypaw's army, and dropping a defensive keep could actually be the way to survive such an assault.
Another thing that's really cool in this game is with the transition to Golems and crossbows, he just got Mamluk's Bravery. This is a really strong tech with high damage units like the Golems and crossbows. The whole idea is if they get the killing blow, they get 20% more damage and 25% more movement speed. So a way of A, gap closing, but B, also trading out better. Something that is actually going to come in handy considering this matchup tends to favor Ottomans if you're pumping the same units due to the aura from the metas. So little detail may matter quite a lot as this game goes on, because something I'm looking towards is if we do think we're going to get that hyper late game, hand cannoneers of the Ayabids with Mamluk's Ascent are no joke.
Especially when you consider how good the blacksmith upgrades are for LucifroN. In general, when you consider how good his upgrades are. Substantially better eco upgrades for him compared to Puppypaw. And blacksmith upgrades also heavily on his side. And looks like that castle is not going to be a defensive one here, KP. He wants to finish the game quickly here, dropping a keep right in front of the enemy base.
Maybe it should have been a defensive one. Look at those little troops around the side from Puppypaw. Looks like it's finally going to be ratcheted to by LucifroN. A lot of villagers here, so unlikely it's going to be stopped unless Puppypaw can move fast. Men-at-Arms do reach into the archers. Janissaries and crossbows continue to push back. It looks like LucifroN might start losing the siege as a knight does move into that mango, but counted out just in time. The mango does stay alive, finally goes down. The castle is going to go up. Now, LucifroN, he paid a price for this, but it's going to be worthwhile as long as he can hold here. And Puppypaw right now does not have the siege to do anything about this.
Yeah, the lack of siege is going to haunt Puppypaw here, but he might just completely bypass this keep here. I think he's realizing that LucifroN sacrificed most of his army to get this keep going. And with all the archers gone, these springboards are undefended. I feel like Puppypaw could march straight into the enemy base over here and just massacre villagers, completely ignoring this keep right in front of his base.
Yep, line formation to drift to the left side here. Springel's also likely to be thrown away. He's trying to just block out the charge in for the few knights, so maybe he keeps some of that anti-siege alive. That's a heavy investment by LucifroN. Golems are rescaling, but the bigger detail is the archer mass. Without archers, these Janissaries are going to dictate the flow. There's only 5 of them here, sure, but they have high base damage, which means the few Golems that he's trickling are not fighting well.
And now we're seeing Lancers arriving from Puppypaw. Much needed mobility added now, and there is not much from LucifroN that can deal with this. In fact, LucifroN is down to just 8 army here, folks. He's losing the Springolds. Not much is left standing for him here, KP.
He's transitioning.
Despite the fact that he's got to keep in front of the enemy base, this might be the end of the story for him in game number 1.
I think it is going to be. He's transitioning to Horseman at the worst possible time. Look at what Puppypaw is transitioning into. It's Mass Knight, so you're going Cavalry at the worst possible time here. The great read would have been if LucifroN used those Raxes to pump Spearmen, because crossbows and Jannies aren't bad at dealing with it, sure, but you're bulky boys, you move fast, you're able to at least be cost-efficient traders. Instead, on an open map like this play at 27 minutes in might be the death of LucifroN.
Puppypaw's momentum is stalling out as well. Both players lost a tremendous amount of units over here. 14 and 16 are the army counts right now. But when you look at the value, it's slightly better for Puppypaw. He does have a lot of those premium Lancers out there, something giving him much needed mobility. Puppypaw is yet to deal with this. Wait a second. He's actually taking Hunt right next to the enemy base here, just by the Sacred Site.
Wait, what was over there as well? Was there an outpost in range of that on the back? No, but he's coming there, so we're about to have a villager showdown now. What makes that scary here, LidaKor, is Puppypaw has the cav now, right? Like, he's the only one pumping cav. And look, they're already prowling this area. This is the thing right now. I think LucifroN kind of needs to go. He needs to start denting the base fast, using this keep as a strong point. Because if this goes a bit too long, like 10 extra minutes, look at his map. He's done one tiny wall. The rest of his base is freely roamable by these knights.
Yeah, question is how long can he sustain the production of these knights? He only has 700 food per minute of food income. And of course the free units he's getting from the military school. But compare that to the 2600 food per minute for LucifroN. A player that is also able to add Desert Raiders to deal with these knights. I feel like sustainability is still a big question here for LucifroN. Or for Puppypaw, beg your pardon. But now with him having some traps to take out that keep, having the Lancers to just decimate the eco of the enemy. I think he's in a great spot, though. This is bad. This is very bad for Puppy. Has to leave all those deer carcasses down there with the Ghulams approaching.
Oh, he's going to keep dying there as well. Ghulams, a few of them got a kill, right? So they actually get the movement speed buff to chase you down. Looks like they actually went the left side of this, so maybe you'll be able to disengage here with the formation shuffling. It looks like reinforcements have arrived in the nick of time. But one thing to keep in mind about Puppypaw's eco, you mentioned this week, but keep in mind, all these knights are for free. He's only military school producing them. He's already up to 14. Spearman count is only at 12. And this siege approach is eventually going to break out. LucifroN hasn't got stone income to sustain repairs on that castle.
I'm not even sure if he wants to sustain repairs at this point. I think he's just yoinking the berries from the front line, making his opponent's food situation a little worse. And that's a big difference between the two. There's a considerable discrepancy when it comes to the farm count, and sure enough, you're getting those troops for free when you play the Ottomans, but when you keep losing units so quickly, you do struggle to replenish your forces quickly enough.
Yeah, and the thing that LucifroN's really done with his economy now is it's all kind of starting to just turn inwards. Outside those berry packs, most of it is on those farms, which means you're having to dive under TCs where the spearmen usually are. Mango shot to the backside, that is the maximum value. That's the best shot you're going to get there. Now, we'll now force to retreat. Now, keep in mind, LucifroN wants to be out in this area. He's trying to plant onto the berries right now with massive villages, so we'll be forced to fight in this area if he doesn't want to starve out.
Population looking worse and worse for Puppypaw here. 105 against 144. Military school is taking their time to replenish the army that he has just lost. And now LucifroN does have some raiding potential as well. And unlike LucifroN, Puppypaw cannot afford to lose villagers as much as LucifroN can.
And not just that, right? The knight count has heavily diminished. A minute ago it was up to 14. Now it's down to 7 with this throwaway. You've now got to deal with horsemen on the defensive while not really having any spears to do so. This is where things are starting to look a little bit cumbersome. It's almost like Puppypaw, I don't blame him for this idea of trying to raid against raid, but if we're being totally realistic of what happens there, LucifroN has an extra third to his economy to sacrifice for a trade there. He's always going to be coming out ahead unless you can somehow reduce economy down to 10 to 10, which just isn't realistic here. Janis.
Yeah, numbers getting depleted here for Puppypaw. He still has a lot of Janissaries, but no front line in front of them. They just keep getting overwhelmed by the Ghulam and the spears. Nice raids, though. Once again, breaking into the enemy base. Now, both players having lost a lot of villagers, but it's Puppypaw who's suffering more here. He's down to just 47 eco, less than 80 population now.
Oh, that was a bait and a half. LucifroN gets just enough melee through there to kill up the Mango. Dodges the shot entirely. And I mean, the issue I'm seeing here, right, is like, it's a double up. It's a double up in economy, and it's more so because we have to remember, it's been a while since it happened because this game has been going on now for 32 minutes, but LucifroN is 5 relics, right? On top of that, you know, despite the Almond's passive reductions, this is still an Abbasid variant, which means, although it's not as good as the Golden Age of the Abbasids, it has got a 10% increased gathering rate compared to other civs. There are a lot of little quirks along the way that make these numbers deceptive, even when you try to be friendly to the Ottomans. This is an ugly position right now. The other issue I do see is Puppypaw is becoming more and more reliant, as Ottomans often do, on Janissaries. Where that's getting a little bit dicey is this crossbow mass is just getting maximum value. It counters both the Knights and the Janis.
Yeah, again, time is an issue here for Puppypaw. He just doesn't have the time to replenish those forces. Still just 86 population against 160 now. The build-up is a lot more rapid for LucifroN. 2,000 food per minute, 800 gold per minute. He has that consistent production that Puppypaw is lacking right now.
Well, this is interesting. I think by the time he builds that outpost, the berries might be gone. So, not really what he was after. Puppypaw actually was out there for food. That's how much he's struggling right now. He can't afford the farm transition on the same scale that LucifroN's been able to. LucifroN, with all that extra wood he's been gathering across the map, looks like it's the year of the Rams. We don't have to wait for Imperial for these bad boys to come out. And right now, Puppypaw, with a lack of melee, might not have a good answer to it. Mangoes at least forced the horsemen away. I'm more worried about the second wave. Charge coming in. Needs to actually get past this. The horsemen need to peel to the backside. Mangoes missed the shot entirely there. Archers are holding just far enough back. Now the crossbows are going to move in, but once again, these Mango shots in all the wrong places. They go after a single spearman. Crossbows now get in range. Finally, he gets a good hit, but considering his position here, now he's going to lose the Mangoes when he realistically, LucifroN should never been able to have gotten here.
And it looks like he's going to survive the first wave, but there's a second on the way as well. And the army count is now massively in the favor of LucifroN. Only a handful of Janissaries left standing. Military school is now a little blazed by the Rams. And it looks like LucifroN's momentum is not something that Puppypaw will be able to stop now. Just not enough resource income to replenish that army anymore. Down below 60 population against 160 from Lucy.
This is it. I mean, there's no coming back. The way LucifroN took that fight as well, Puppypaw. Mango's barely ever touched a thing, and right now, LucifroN looks untouchable in this game. GG comes out. We'll open up this third place series with a win for the Spaniard, but don't worry, folks. It's a best of 5, so NA Pride still has at least 2 more opportunities to make it right.
What a lovely game to open this day with, though. Back and forth in numerous cases. And sometimes it felt like Puppypaw was going to have the chance to turn it around. At the end of the day, just the lack of eco to mass-produce units, combined with the fact that he was facing off against 5 relics for so long, just kind of overwhelmed him. In fact, if we take a look at the overall resources gathered here on the statistics tab, we will see how big of a discrepancy there was between the 2 players. Of course, Puppypaw is getting a lot of his units for free, but when you're down by 6,000 gold, even more importantly, 14,000 wood and 14,000 food in a 30-minute long game, that's an issue.
Yeah, honestly, it's the aggressive nature of this opening. This is something that I really love about the IBIDs that I remember highlighting when the expansion came out, is that this is reminiscent of the Ambassadors in some ways and some interesting perky points, but the difference is that when you think of the Ambassadors as the game goes on, it's like this, right? It's a nice, steady graph moving up. The progress looks good. For the IBIDs, it almost looks more like I'm watching a heart monitor, right? They go up, then they go down, low and up, but it can still go on the rise. But the whole idea is there's these opportunities, these windows that you have to exploit to the maximum. And I think LucifroN show you exactly how to do that. Advancement, despite the nerfs, is still the most single popular choice out of all the landmark options on that Civ, and you saw exactly why in this game.
Looks like we'll be heading into 4 Lakes for game number 2 here. Japanese, one of the most popular civilization picks on 4 Lakes, coming in here for Puppypaw. Fitting to your lovely AoE 3 Japanese background, by the way.
I know,
but it's going to be matched up against by LucifroN's English.
Yeah, I don't. Well, I mean, I am English, so I mean, maybe that's what we were kind of pushing here with our psychic energy. We were both channeling the Japanese. It looks like we will be treated to them on the map where, Japanese is the new kid on the block challenging the kings of 4 Lakes, right? We've actually seen Japanese versus Rus. We've seen Japanese versus Chinese. Both times, Japanese were not able to get the win. This, however, is a very peculiar matchup. LucifroN going for the English, not really your standard top 3, I'd say, on this map, but an interesting idea up against the Japanese. And matchup where, realistically, he could be the tempo setter, because longbows are actually a solid answer to the Japanese opening, because on Horde Hybrid maps, they tend to go for that Cocker Township.
Yeah, I was about to touch on this, as you said. Japanese, the new kid on the block of 4 Lakes, often matching up against the popular choices on this map. But guess what? English is not the popular choice on this map. But as you touched on this, it's a civilization with a great matchup against the Japanese. Melee units in general will struggle against the Coca Township landmark and the Shinobi being used. But when you have a natural counter to them, the longbows, it's going to make things so much more effective. And let's not forget the fact that, in general, English is a really powerful civilization when you have a consistent, sustainable food income. You can play into knights, you can, especially on a map like this, where you kind of have those battles happening in the midfield and there is less raiding on the flanks. You can use your Network of Castles bonus a lot more as well. A lot of things make English an appealing choice here on this map, I feel.
Yeah, I've actually seen some wild builds from English players before. I've even seen ones where they proxy Council Hall after dropping an outpost on the enemy woodline, which sounds wild, I know, but kind of makes sense if you're trying to shut the game out against a greedy Civ. In this game, because it is going to be a dock opening, we're not going to get any weird shenanigans out of LucifroN. I think it's going to take a more standard opening. We might see him try to sneak docks here. It's a little bit of a tricky predicament, though, right? Even if you do manage to sneak a dock up, the only thing the English get is cheaper production of those boats, right? They don't get faster production, which means that the Coca Township tends to just counter you out. I do wonder, though. Yeah, one interesting thing actually about Puppypaw's scouting pattern there, seeing where the dock went, and actually looking on the other side, like if LucifroN scouts where Puppypaw's dropped his dock, he might try to snake a dock around the back. I'm thinking actually of what LucifroN, I believe he tried to do it against Beastie yesterday, where he somehow got right in the back of the base. That's something to be conscious of. Right now, a lot of players on Four Lakes drop their docks at the center to be able to scout any villager shenanigans. But that does leave you susceptible to a wide arc where someone goes right around the back of your base and drops it in the corner.
I love that little wall there between the gold mine and the lake. Of
Oh, yeah.
course, with the Sultan's Ascent DLC patch, now walls snap to natural resources like that. So it's much easier to get these little, I guess these little palisades to protect these narrow choke points. Makes it a lot more reasonable to drop those in those positions. But KP, just looking at the Dark Ages over here, Puppypaw is going to have a considerable advantage going into Feudal here. He's going to age up with the Koga Township, get scouted immediately by LucifroN's scout.
Oh no!
LucifroN, on the
What a
other hand,
big secret.
yeah, it's not like it was gonna be a big secret anyways. But LucifroN now knows for certain
Yeah.
that he's facing the Koga Township. On the other side, LucifroN is taking a little slower of an approach when it comes to aging up, but that's just because he pays full price for the fishing boats with the English, so he needs to have more lumberjacks out there compared to the Japanese.
Well, he pays a little bit less, right? Because you get the 10% discount as English, but compared to the Japanese, with almost a 50% haircut on the price,
Yep,
doesn't really compete. So yeah, you're right. That's why we got that difference, and LucifroN compensates for that. He actually rushes with 7 on the council hall, makes a lot of sense as well. English really is about optimal feudal timings because their presence in that first 2-3 minutes of feudal age is one of the strongest in Age of Empires 4. Longbows truly are a unique premium unit. They can typically find great targets on water hybrid maps because of how reliant your opponent tends to be on wood. And as we know, wood typically is a little bit more awkward to defend, especially when you're doing what Puppypaw is doing, which is he's gone for the wood near the gold.
yeah, certainly that's the primary target for you, the enemy wood line. But especially when you have everything so condensed here for Puppy, the gold, the wood, the fishing boats, all close to each other, it just gives a gigantic target marker for LucifroN to aim for. And I think the issue that Puppypaw could be facing here is that Japanese don't really like opening with horsemen in early feudal age. And if you don't do that, you will struggle against the longbows. Without a bannerman, your Yumi will struggle against them. You might want to play into samurai, but those are pretty expensive. So for the time being, it's just going to be the shinobi coming in from Puppypaw. No surprise there. I would not be shocked to see LucifroN just holding back a couple of longbows to protect his dock. And once he has like 4 or 5, he could start marching out, see what damage he can do on Puppypaw's eco.
Absolutely. And it's an interesting read what LucifroN's doing here, going into spears, but it does make a lot of sense. You know, of the 3 buildings in feudal age that Japanese can build, I'd say like stables for active use is probably like the least used at the moment, mainly because people are trying and failing to figure out a way to make UB work. But the whole logic here is why Puppypaw could do stables units on this map is all the fishing. You get so much food that Horseman is feasible. It also sets him up in the event that this is just a fast castle build out of Puppypaw, which is really popular at the moment for the Japanese. And considering we haven't seen another unit being built at all, and he has arrow slits coming in on the outpost, it looks like Puppypaw is going to be going for that fast castle Japan build.
This shinobi cannot catch a break. He even TP'd away from the longbowman and now gets scouted by a spearman, and Puppypaw is definitely struggling when it comes to harassing the enemy dock. But as you mentioned, this is only the side show here. He actually went for 2 defensive towers back at home. He's definitely concerned about the safety of that wood line and the gold mine. But by the time LucifroN arrives, Puppypaw is going to be set up very well to age up to Castle Age.
Yeah, it's interesting when you think about the cost comparison there as well, right? Getting arrow slits, getting the outpost versus 6 longbows. If it wasn't for the fact that LucifroN added in a spear early on, I think he'd have a comparative tech timing. But Puppypaw definitely going to be teching up first. The problem is it going to be a tech up clean? Because now what I see is with these longbows, the way they're skirting this, LucifroN, he knows what this build is. He's seen it plenty of times. He's not going to let him build that floating gate for free.
Especially when you consider that LucifroN's timing isn't going to be bad either. In fact, he's only going to be like, what, 10, 15, 20 seconds behind compared to his opponent in Castle Age timing. But he does have production buildings already. He does have a barracks, he does have the council hall as well. And more importantly, he's shutting down the enemy gold mine right now with these longbows. And this is a big issue LucifroN did a great job when it comes to sneaking past these towers and finding an angle where the towers simply cannot hit the longbows. And if
Oh
you don't
no.
have access to gold in Costlage for Puppypaw, all this Costlage timing is going to be for nothing.
Now, luckily for Puppypaw there, LucifroN was busy actually attacking the Shinobi. He could probably still park just around where that longbow died and hit one of those villagers, but he's not going to try for it. Instead, LucifroN has the resources now. This might be a white tower game. I think the cool thing about white tower here is that you could actually try to match the stable production, but instead, he decides he's going to have to turtle. He's going to go for the King's Power, so a much more defensive option for LucifroN. But I guess the issue is, like, even if you go white tower, you're 2 stable versus 3, right? So realistically, long term, you fall behind. Instead, he's going to rely on a stronger economy down the line to pump out of more stables.
Yeah, I feel like scaling is something that's extremely important on this map, because right now you have a consistent food income from the deep fish, but it eventually will shrink and it will decrease in efficiency once you are taking the droplets closer from or far away from your dock. And you being able to have a secondary layer to your economy with extra villagers is immensely valuable. I think I prefer this scaling style approach that LucifroN is using over here. And despite the fact that he could have gotten a lot of value out of the White Tower, I think he can accomplish the same thing just by brute forcing mass production buildings.
Well, yeah, I think the interesting thing is, like, he's just accepting he's not going to have map control. So realistically, we're probably going to be looking at 3 or 4 relics of Puppypaw, right? But we know the English late game is no joke, right? The gathering speed on their farms, the extra gold they get, they can play Imp very comfortably. The cool thing about White Tower is not only does it make part of your base inapproachable, it would have also given him the flexi to any Euroshiro opening, whether it's rack, stables, whatever. Meanwhile, though, LucifroN trying to get cute with these body blocks here so the Spearman can get the kill. It's not going to be a fast one, even if he does, but if you can at least force the commitment to a second Shinto priest, I don't think Puppypaw has even built the temple yet, rather. So this would hurt him a lot.
Yeah, he's got some knights out there. So even if he doesn't get the kill here, the next time this Shinto priest leaves the base, it's going to be an easy target. Looks like he's going to make it back home just with a tiny HP left. Big relic yoink here for Puppypaw. That was one of the relics that LucifroN could have contested and secured for himself. He's got one at the back of his base that should be guaranteed for LucifroN. And I feel like, as you said, because he might be lacking map control here in early castle, Puppypaw will likely have the majority of the relics. For LucifroN, the goal would be to secure about 2 here.
Honestly, Lucifer, I think he body blocks more than any other player I've ever watched. It's always a marvel to witness. I wonder if he used to play a lot of Dota when it was the mod for Warcraft 3, because of course he used to play Warcraft 3 competitively. It just has that kind of reminiscent feeling to it. I love to see it as well, because this is not an easy game to body block in. The way that you kind of rub off your targets, it's different to, like, you know, Warcraft is that example where you can hard block and force a repath. So really good job there, just to try and slow down the Shinto as much as he did. And as you said, opens him up to taking him out when he comes out again. Knights, in the meantime, are going to be bogged down by this Samurai spam. Puppypaw already up to 8 of them, now transitioning the Spearman. And also getting that Daimyo ready, which means he's going to have the Bannerman to juice up this full infantry comp.
Yeah, that's where it gets very scary here, especially when you consider that the Samurai, with their extra armor, that layer that essentially cancels the first attack from the enemy, that greatly reduces the combat abilities of these knights. You essentially eliminate that charge in there. Oh, might actually come through here.
Oh, he deleted him. Come on, come on. Okay, Tiny Ran, I am still to this day frustrated that you can delete units in a Wallalow ring. I think they should not be deletable. All right, if you take the risk, you gotta reap the pain as much as you reap the rewards.
You gotta credit Puppypaw for that quick reaction. It was like,
yes.
Oh shoot, I'm gonna lose my one samurai. I will rather delete it.
Not today, Tom Cruise just gone like that. I mean, it's kind of awkward, right? I guess the trade-off that I've heard argued as a counter to not being able to delete units in Wallow is you have to delete and hold, right? You can't do other actions. You have to wait for the completion. But it does always feel a little bit cheap when you actually get a good Wallow and they manage to just purge the units from existence. But still, I mean, it is a relic.
It was a Harakiri, right? It was a samurai, so it's not that surprising.
He just drops to his knees, unsheaths the sword. It's like, wait, whoa. I'm going to wall you in 2 seconds. You sure you got time for this? Dead. Just like this Shinto. Won't make it back with a relic. However, I am seeing the relic scattered in a very pretty pattern in Puppypaw's base right now. He has not built a temple yet. but he does have 3.
One thing he's doing is collecting all these relics, though, and I love it. Like, if nothing else, then you secure yourself the relic advantage in the long run, though you're definitely missing out on some gold income as a consequence. And he's losing a couple of these precious samurai as well. Longbow plus Knight feels like a decent matchup against the samurai and the spearman.
Yeah, it's so good because obviously it counts as spearman, but more important than that, funnily enough, something more important than that is actually the fact that the samurai's deflective armor gets removed, which means the knights are getting the biggest part of damage usually going through, which is that lance strike. Knights on this backside do not have those lances out though. Instead, they have some different sticks being pushed in the tushkis. I'm gonna like that, and I'm gonna be taken down. But check what's coming now. It's gonna be a dog drop attempt out of LucifroN. Army is shifting up here as well, so should be able to push these spearmen away.
Knights casually torching down that one combat vessel. We do have 2 pawns for both of these players, and so far they haven't really been contesting each other's spawns. Up until this moment, as I'm saying that there's a dock coming in here, villager will likely get pushed away. Might even get sniped over here by the combat ship. Looks like that mass of infantry is growing very rapidly. 30 army against 19 here. Those Yorishiros, they are starting to pay for the investment. It's not really an investment, right? But they're definitely starting to show on the battlefield.
It sort of is an investment though, right? You have 4 maximum and they take quite a while to reproduce. So like you have to be very logical about how you use them. It's funny really because all that happened from the nerfs to the Flown Gate, the devs just guaranteed that Yorishiros would never be used for economy. They're always used for military gains now because getting tripped production is such a big edge. It's, you know, the crazy part is like the really popular build at the moment is to go stables drop. And your argument could be, why do you not just drop 3 stables instead? Well, the problem there is you have to wait 35 seconds. Puppypaw, if he had it in the stables, he's just waiting 12 seconds, right? For these samurai, it's taking like 6 seconds, 7 seconds to get them out. It's an insane burst potential, especially on maps like Four Lakes, where you have the extra food to use that.
LucifroN does have both of the sacred sites under his control, and he pushed out a little to try and prevent Puppypaw from decapping. Might have been a little overzealous over here, though, because the mounted samurai have a good wrap on his archers, and he tries to save these archers with the knights, but he might end up sacrificing his whole army as a consequence.
Yeah, I think it's all going to be falling down here. I mean, the longbows might be able to reform and get through the infantry quick enough. He is going to have the static defenses in his base. Hopefully, it'll be able to hold on for him. He has now got the network of castles aura, which should start to give a little bit of edge over and even up the benefits that Puppypaw was getting out of these bannermen. But, folks, this is just wave 1. I mean, if you thought that this is victory for LucifroN and he's going to get out of his base, Puppypaw still has another 20 units that aren't even here yet.
Yeah, that's a scary detail, and LucifroN now shifting into crossbows. Thankfully for him, the council hall is something that helps the build-up of those crossbows a lot. But those crossbows have been missing so badly from this engagement. He was facing almost exclusively heavy units, samurai and mounted samurai. Even just a handful of crossbows would have helped so much in that engagement.
And it's like, especially double damming, because you don't have anything to breach the deflective fast, and then you don't have anything to kill faster, right? Like, longbows are decent because of the range, but their attack speed is a little bit worse than your standard archers, right? So even that doesn't tick that box for you. So very effective army for Puppypaw. And fair as well, he did pay a premium, right? Samurai and Mount Samurai cost more than the standard Knight Men-at-Arms counterparts. Another thing that is really interesting to think about this particular matchup is LucifroN can't just transition Men-at-Arms as a counter, because usually the English Men-at-Arms are great frontliners due to the armor clad giving them +2. Issue with that is if he pumps the Men-at-Arms and Puppypaw just pumps Samurai, Samurai get +4 from the Adachi as well as an extra 1 melee damage due to the 4th melee tech of the Japanese. So it's a trade that you only ever win if you're in attack speed or a range. I mean, even then, if there's a bannerman joining those Japanese soldiers, good luck.
Yeah, army numbers just not looking good here for LucifroN. He's looking to make a shift into men-at-arms, but against all these samurai and mounted samurai, I'm not really convinced about that approach. And you know what else doesn't convince me right now for LucifroN? The fact that he hasn't picked up the relic at the back of his base. He could have 2 relics, but he only has 1. Okay, yes, I'm saying that he just picked it up, but still, that relic was a little late to the party.
Yeah, I think he maybe thought there was still another relic up for grabs elsewhere, and he was going for that over the safe one instead. Kind of makes sense from that angle. One interesting thing to think about here is, so far, this game is looking good for Puppypaw, but notice I said so far. Eco is still a problem I'm noticing here. Puppypaw is doing a damn good job of what he's got, but as we get later into this game, and the walls go up like they are for LucifroN, and we start to see a farm transition come out from both players. The English farms can easily compete with the Japanese. You have to remember the Japanese, if they have a max level CC, they get 75% increased gathering rate from farms. The English, with standard food techs, will get 45%, and then the unique perk for the mill influence will even up to the buff the Japanese get. And then on top of that, you're going to get gold when we reach Imperial Age. So you can start to see why English farm versus Japanese farm, that's a decent matchup for them. Military, still up in the air with a question mark.
Yeah, I feel like this game is neck and neck right now, KP. Rollick's even. Eco's kind of comparable when you look at the overall resource income. Position on the map kind of the same as well. Right now, it's kind of a small build-up from both these players. We might have a big fight here in the middle, though. Tower is still under construction here, so no network of castles for LucifroN to work with.
Oh, and there's not many men-at-arms. I love this peel by Puppypaw. He goes to the back line with the Mount Samurai, and then he leaves the Odachi Samurai to deal with the men-at-arms. Glow's going to come out as LucifroN does get the outpost up. Wall's being rushed behind this because he's not confident that he can hold, and for good reason. His army is looking a bit discounted here. Men-at-arms line is already dead. Archer Crossbow need to back away from this. The only edge he has is that his army is ranged. Puppypaw is still full melee.
And for now, LucifroN is holding over here, but he's confined into his base, and his opponent does have both sacred sites. And look at what Puppypaw is up to. He wants to go into Imperial here. He isn't going to wait until he's pop-capped, until he has a massive army. He is stacking up resources for Imperial.
It's such a smart play because of what we just highlighted about the economy. LucifroN really unlocks his potential in the next 4 or 5 minutes when he's able to afford Imp, and he's going to be eco-capped first. But Puppypaw understands that with the extra savings he's getting along the way, transitioning to fishing, the extra gold he's been generating as well, he has a tighter timing. Not to mention the better trades he's been getting in this game. So, great read. Keep in mind, we're also going to be shifting straight into Tanegashima Gunsmith, most likely. Really solid solution against these slow-moving armies of the English.
You know, one thing that Puppypaw doesn't really have here, as it looks like he's actually doubling down on army production now. He has queued up 11 Samurai. He could still get to Imperial fairly quickly, but I guess he was concerned about a counterattack. But speaking of that, one thing that the Japanese do not get in Castle Age is a keep. So as much as you can upgrade your town centers to be strongholds, you don't really have that strong defensive structure or even a structure that you can drop in the middle of the map to establish map control in Castle Age.
Yeah, it's one of those tough kind of decision makers, right, from the devs. I mean, it makes a lot of sense because you can make your TCs absolute bosses, and also this is a Civ that passively gets stoned from gathering gold. So it would, I think, it'd be a little bit broken for castle dominance, but instead, that's not going to stop Puppypaw from moving forward. He says static defenses. Well, the English tried that. That one didn't work. A little baby keep of that outpost didn't do anything, and now stone gathering means LucifroN has what he needs for a castle. He's going to have to drop it behind his full production, though. And keep in mind, he's only protecting the south side of his base. The east side is still fully exposed. Mangoes, a decent shot there, actually, onto the men-at-arms, but really needs to hit into those crossbows. They are distracted right now. Dealing the spears, chasing on the Springolds. LucifroN, slow with the reaction, loses a third of the ranged instantly.
LucifroN kept that one Springgold alive for so long. The Siege Workshop is right on the front line. He almost lost that one Springgold that he had. And that Springgold being kept alive means that the Mangonels from Puppypaw have to be pulled back here.
Oh.
Crucial moment for LucifroN in this fight.
Siege Workshop being torched down, though. The Mango went in deep. That is ballsy from Puppypaw. But somehow he ends up hitting the market instead. I can't believe that didn't pay off. Now Mango's are in range. One more shot load comes out. Beautiful dodge by LucifroN. However, the Siege is starting to be exposed. Springgold pulls back just in the nick of time. And Puppypaw will now have to pull back himself. LucifroN decides to go for a more aggressive keep instead after all this. He sees an opportunity to grab the gold now that Puppypaw has no siege.
Yeah, and he's been taking this fight without a network of castles aura for himself. And once he gets this keep up, he is going to have this aura here. He can even upgrade that to network of citadels, making this army a lot more competitive. But I'm not sure if this keep is going up here, KP.
No, this is Odachi. This is the power of Odachi right now. They are all infantry. They die way too quickly, and now the villagers are going to be exposed. Jump in by the Samurai. More villagers being pulled by LucifroN. Remember, he's got a big eco leap. You don't want to be thrown away on this. He's trying to get that castle rushed up. It looks like he might have just enough build force to do so, but the price is most definitely high for entry.
Yeah, he might have been able to snipe some of these samurai as they were beating up the villagers. He opted to take out the units that were focusing his crossbows and longbows, but he took out the banner, man. You can actually see the banner having been dropped. And now, when you look at the army count, it's a lot better for LucifroN. 20 crossbows against an army that is exclusively samurai. I feel like LucifroN getting this keep going and keeping this game alive, he might have just gotten massive momentum for himself.
Now, we shouldn't jump the gun too much. There was a price to be paid there, right? I think he lost about 12 to 15 villages. And the reason I highlight that is because if we consider that LucifroN had like a 20-30 eco lead, Puppypaw was still trading better with him, with a weaker economy theoretically. So that's something to be conscious of. There might still be a window here, especially now that Puppypaw has doubled down on anti-siege, which also, funnily enough, should be called anti-villages. They're pretty good at sniping out those poor little eco units.
Yeah, in general, Springolds are still very effective firing from the back line in prolonged engagements. Beautiful mangonel shot.
Small trade out. He's still got the mango. No, LucifroN, like, he's going to try to dive deeper, but this is going to be costly. Instantly loses a third of the crossbows. And there are enough Odachi Samurai here to hold. LucifroN, mistakes made, thought he could move out, and pays the price. And now, with a limited number of melee, I'm more focused on the artillery. Puppypaw has 2 mangoes, 4 Springolds, and is now adding in the trebuchets to solve for that castle.
That's the only gold income that LucifroN has, aside from the relics and the 1 sacred site. That's why he's fighting this. He needs to fight this because he needs that gold. It looks like he does have a second gold mine over here then. I'm a little surprised. He could have used that gold mine, but he felt so desperate to engage over there. It definitely was an engagement where he overstayed his welcome, got almost annihilated by the siege. But it looks like he's back on track and he still has this keep protecting his base. LucifroN, he's setting himself up for a long game here once again.
I'm enjoying these Springolds right now. I mean, it's crazy because this used to be broken. It's a bit more reasonable these days. No, but to your point, the reason he's trying to gather that gold is that's risky resource, right? If he doesn't have that gold behind him as a backup plan in the next 5 minutes, his game is already dead because he's spamming crossbows and men-at-arms. That's very expensive on gold. Not to mention the fact he won't have a way up in Imperial Age. So I do think this is the right read by LucifroN, also just trying to block a direct route into his base with that keep. But unfortunately, even though he's got these raid attempts going on the flanks, I just don't think they're doing enough damage here, especially when the men-at-arms get drunk like that. Like, I don't know what they were doing there. Still some pathfinding issues to work out.
LucifroN is making a heavy switch into Horsemen, though. He has had a stables for a while. He doesn't really have a lot of gold supply to work with, so Knights aren't really an option. But this could be a nasty surprise for Puppypaw. Puppypaw doesn't have a lot of mobility. He's got 52 Samurai only. Those are terrifying in a direct engagement, but LucifroN might be able to get some good raids going. The concern, I think, for Lucy is that once this keep falls, these Samurai will just flood his eco. Can he actually hold on against that many Samurai armed with Nodachi?
Yeah, I think the Japanese kind of play like this weird form of the Zerg right now with this combo. It's, I mean, for anyone who plays StarCraft, right, it's like the Protoss-Zerg hybrid, if anything. The Samurai, they can trade really well in the melee engagements, and there's always just a never-ending number of them. And keep in mind, there's enough Bannerman for him to just keep dropping one as he takes fights to still keep that aura up. But LucifroN realizes he doesn't want to give the Adachi Fiend time over. Instead goes to the Mass Horseman to dive into the siege with the choke point! The Mangoes might get some shots off here, and I don't know. He gets stuck here. The Horseman through the gap. One outpost to counter an army, and LucifroN, just like that, loses a third of his army.
That is annihilation here. He tried to go for the Mangonels, picked them off from the backline, allowed the crossbows to take a good engagement. But the cavalry just got trapped in the choke point, absolutely butchered by the Samurai. And now LucifroN's army is in shambles here. No food in the bank, just 8 crossbows in queue, facing off against almost 50 Samurai once again.
Oh, the Mangoes! Not only are they getting the key, they always get the villages. What a way to break him there. Puppypaw showing you exactly why he deserves extra micro pips on that stat card. I said it before, I'll say it again. This guy is something special, and it's not easy to do that, LidaKor, against a player like LucifroN. LucifroN, who's considered to always have been a top 3 micro in Age of Empires 4, and yet he got baited hook, line, and sinker into his own death.
Oh, and now he's out of food completely. Has to make a farm transition as we speak. He's still doing a good job with the raids, but with that keep destroyed and no standing army to protect his base, his position in this game is precarious, KP.
Oh, yes. Luckily for him, at least, walls knew how to attach the gold, so he's fully walled in. But Being fully walled in isn't a good thing here. This is not Imperial Age English. He doesn't have that perma-gold generation. His food is barely keeping up with the need as well. It's a remassment of horses. LucifroN, calm down though, mate. Before we commit to that again, I would double-check if there's an outpost and any samurai nearby. Oh, there is an outpost. Oh, no.
LucifroN is still standing, though, and we've seen him being able to come back from tough positions. He does have a consistent food income and gold income as well. Now, he finds a good angle on these siege weapons, takes out a lot of them. Kind of makes up for that previous absolutely disastrous engagement.
Feels like he needs more, though, right? Like that. If this is the previous Horseman mass, that would have killed everything. Unfortunately, it's not that big. So he will find some of the siege. One Trevor gets taken out. I believe it was a Mango and 2 Springalds, but that's still a big siege advantage. And also, LucifroN is getting more worrisome at this stage. I think Puppypaw with the villagers on the front side might even decide to start doing some small walls of his own to control these choke points.
Yeah, army numbers still looking a lot better for Puppypaw here. He does have the Bannermen to support those samurai as well. LucifroN does have quite some crossbows, and he does have the attack buff as well. But as long as the Mangonels are still in there, he just cannot deal with this army. Needs another cavalry push to try and take out those Mangonels.
It's feeling a little bit too late at this stage. I'm seeing the flood through. This many samurai, the unlimited samurai, onto the farms now. I mean, the armies get busy. It looks like the siege might get some licks in here with the horsemen. Samurai are now reacting. Mango shots come in, and I mean, even if you clean up the siege, if we're being totally real about this game, does Puppypaw need anything but samurai at this stage?
It's tough to say. He's facing a lot of crossbows, and LucifroN has done a good job microing those, picking off those samurai that broke into the eco. As I'm saying that villagers getting butchered on the farms, looks like LucifroN, as he was microing the cavalry, he stopped with the crossbows. Feels too late to snipe that siege once again, and you know, KP, we're looking back at that one disastrous engagement for LucifroN. Had it gone differently, this would be a very different game, I feel.
Oh, absolutely. But instead, it's a desperation play. LucifroN now going for the Berkshire. And it's exactly where the samurai are. They're going to split up. Horsemen trying to go for the body blocks to protect this, but the villagers already being exposed. A few samurai shifting over the javelins. And, sorry, the crossbows. And there's still one Mango left alive. The body blocks out from the samurai. They don't keep it up. Final shot comes in, but it's a fail. The horseman dies. And the Mango now pushes crossbows away. This has to be it. LucifroN, he pulls more villagers, but it's too little too late. Puppypaw will hold him here in Castle Age and surely make this a win for Canada.
I just don't see it for LucifroN. Now, what an engagement, and how he managed to keep that one Mangonel alive, holding hostage all these crossbows. LucifroN is desperate to get this keep up, and maybe he does, but it looks like he's not even going to try. Taps out of this game, and with that, LucifroN fails to take game number 2. Puppypaw evens this series out.
What a play there as well. I mean, honestly, the way that he just kind of held these fights time and time again with the Unlimited Samurai, I think really a big part of this comes down to positioning and also timing. Like, you have to give a lot of credit to Puppypaw. He did just do what looked like kind of a no-brainer, one melee type supported by Siege, but it's not that simple to execute, as many people have experienced and learned on the ladders. Still a fantastic game from both players, means that we get a much longer series here as they even it up, which means we, LidaKor, have at least 2 more games in this best of 5.
I just want to look at the army graph of this game, KP, because I think we are going to see something very important on that army graph that describes the last 5 minutes of this game. Yeah, there it is. Just look at that fight at 25 minutes. That's probably what lost the game for LucifroN, to be honest.
I mean, that is the world right there, right? Like the amount of horsemen that died in that moment, going from next to that 65 down to about 25 there, right? Because the crossbows were also dying to the Mango. It's just a great pinch up against the woodline. You can see the desperation, the way that the units rallied, and the instant reaction by Puppypaw just to close the trap before LucifroN can move away. Just shows you that small moves can lead to big results. And that move, well, I felt anything but small, but it was just one tiny piece of a much wider game that gets us deeper into these series. And next up, I'm a little bit disappointed. I like my expansion, LidaKor. There's no expansion civs here. There are just 2 very big bullies when it comes to competitive play. It's Delhi versus Malians.
Ooh, Delhi facing off against LucifroN as well. He himself loves his own deli, but he's going to be in command of the Malians here, and Puppypaw is going to have the deli here. We're going to try Arabia. LucifroN, he picked his own first home map. No surprises on either side so far, picking their own home maps, not really going into the opportunity to take away the enemy home map. But it looks like we do have a game up right away. LucifroN and Puppypaw standing at 1-1 here in the third place match of the EGC 2023 finals. We head into Dry Arabia to take a look at the Malians versus Delhi matchup.
Ooh, baby. And first thing that's going to matter is what kind of spawns have we got? Is this going to be one of those M-Lord spawns for the Malians? I actually think LucifroN did get one of them. Yep, look at that. Triple gold retracted. Very cozy position. Now, he doesn't have the most beneficial wood lines to the south side. It's a little bit more open, but those first 2 golds should be very parked and safe. Puppypaw, of course, would be expected to be the aggressor here with the deli. Another thing to look at is where his sacred sites are. And I think that's what makes this matchup a bit more interesting, is you've got 2 sacred sites more condensed to the south side here, and all that gold interest. So we actually might see both sides fighting a lot over the south side of this map.
Yeah, that south side is just stacked with resources. That's going to be an intriguing one to take a look at. Although, if you're the Malians, you're probably less inclined to take fights in that area. For you, it's going to be a game revolving around that death ball of Danzos and javelin throwers. A unit composition that essentially all civilizations struggle against very mightily. And so far, we've yet to see compositions that are really capable of dealing with that. I'm actually unsure how exactly the Delhi can approach this to take out such a composition.
So Delhi, the interesting thing actually is Ghazi Raiders, as is always the case right now, a very strong element, just because they're a lot more tanky than standard horsemen, so they can go in for the trades on houses and go for trades on villages, even with Donsos nearby. So that's kind of step 1. Step 2 really is kind of fixating around these sacred sites. The whole goal is to force the Malians to come out before they're ready to get the Grand Fulani fully fleshed out. And despite the fact that LucifroN and Vortex do quite often like to go for Farimba, I think this matchup, we probably are going to be looking at Fulani play, considering how defendable his starting area is.
You know, we've seen an actual resurgence when it comes to the alternative landmark, the Grand Fulani Corral. And I'm actually curious if we're going to see the Farimba Garrison being put to use over here, because one thing that the Farimba Garrison does give you is insane early Castle Age momentum. And knowing how aggressive LucifroN likes to play, I think that could be a good change up to things. We will see very quickly, based on the positioning of the cattle ranches, whether we are expecting a Grand Fulani Corral or a Farimba Garrison. But I feel like in this set in particular, games that are dragging out a little, LucifroN hasn't really been able to play to his usual style of high aggressiveness. So I feel like playing into the Farimba Garrison is something that LucifroN could justify in this game.
Yeah, the interesting thing actually in this type of game is like the Farimba, to me, the only issue is like you're going to be playing a bigger slog, even fewer versus castle. Like the thing that always makes that kind of play awkward is that because the Delhi play a more swarmy style, they tend to be like 20, 25, maybe 30 military ahead of you at that stage. And it means that with things like the Ghazi, they can just slap you down as you spawn. So, yeah, I am curious to see if there is any room for that. Like, I know that LucifroN and Vortex have been 2 of the leaders in the resurgence of that play. I don't know if it's because, I don't want to say they're bored of Fulani because it's competitive play, right? You want to put your best foot forward. But I don't necessarily feel like anything bad happened to Fulani that shot it in the knees, right? Compared to the Farimba, which really didn't receive any buffs.
Oh yeah, certainly. It's just a matter of it's a matter of longevity in many ways. Grand Fulani Corral sets you up long-term, makes your economy very robust, even in early mid-Castle Age. And it's also something that's going to be fairly difficult for your opponent to raid, whereas the Farimba Garrison is more about having that one quick strike in early mid-Castle Age to finish the game.
Definitely. And it feels like if you miss that timing, the game can get a little bit wonky from there on out, especially when you consider what you give up, right? Like, I think I've seen people with like a 40 eco deficit, just having the Grand Fulani Corral essentially just offsets that, right? With it fully fleshed out with level 3 eco upgrades. So we'll have to see which way he wants to go. He is dropping the mill straight away. That's not necessarily an indication that this is 100% going to be a play into the cattle, but usually a good indication.
And on the other side, Tower Victory coming in here for Puppypaw. No surprise on that front. Eco upgrades on the way, as we usually see from the Delhi, having those upgrades available for free. And it's a Gauzy Raider opening to establish a little map control to pressure those gold mines. I don't see any Donzos just yet from LucifroN, so he is probably going to suffer from some harassment here, but generally speaking, that's not something that the Malians are usually worried about. The damage that you can do with only a handful of Gauzy Raiders is somewhat limited.
Yeah, I'd be surprised if he's able to kill any like eco tool these Gauzy plays. Like LucifroN has seen it should have enough time to get the Spearman right, but it is going to be those houses sacrificed a bit. The one upside out of all this for LucifroN is because he got a very tight double gold spawn next to his base, he doesn't have to run far once he starts getting Donzos to defend this. And I think that's the thing that's going to be annoying in this game for Puppypaw, is this is not one of those spawns where the gold is on the left and right side of the Malian's base, so they have to Benny Hills. It's a map where all the gold is on the left side, so they can easily rotate and defend both. So maybe that Puppypaw's best bet at raiding is actually on that wood line.
A double mill coming in here for LucifroN, so he's going to commit very heavily to the cattle build here. Makes a lot of sense when you consider that the build-up from the Delhi is usually fairly slow. They take time until they get Sanctity. They don't really play very aggressive in early Feudal Age, so you can easily get away with a very eco-focused approach over here. And by the time the Delhi start leveraging the map control with the sacred sites, you will have a very robust and consistent resource income. Something that you can turn into army and then contest these sacred sites.
Yeah, and some of this interesting right now of LucifroN's base, like, judging by where he put that first cattle ranch, I think he's going to drop the Fulani to, like, the southwest. So essentially he's going to create this entire condensed eco on essentially one screen with the double pit mine and then the ranch locations. It's an interesting approach in this game, and I actually quite like it, because it just basically makes it so that you don't have to defend wider, because, like we said, those Ghazi spamming the way they are, the worst thing you could possibly do is play a wide economy. And we should be seeing the sacred sites capped soon, by the way. Puppypaw has got 2 scholars. I think one's already marching out towards the central sacred site here. So I think he's about 20 seconds out from Sanctity. Is he not coming yet? Usually you pull the scholar by now, right? Yeah, there he is. He's shuffling.
He does have one of the scholars in the range for efficient production, though. And this is something that we don't commonly see from the Delhi. Usually, you just go heavy on the sacred sites with all of your scholars. But one thing that Puppypaw wants to accomplish this way is accelerate his army buildup to try and put a little bit more pressure on LucifroN here, and it could work well. Right now, LucifroN only has 6 Donzos, and I don't think he's ready to deal with 10 archers all buffed by the Tower of Victory. I think this setup, just buffing that one production building with a scholar, is actually giving a lot of momentum here for Puppypaw.
Yeah, and I think that's actually one of the big tools in Delhi's arsenal that makes them so effective. Like, a lot of people think it's just through the sacred site, but it's actually the military efficiency you just highlight there. It allows you to surge your production in a way that other civs would have to build additional buildings to do, which means you're spending 150 wood and you're idling your eco to do so, right? Meanwhile, the Delhi, oh, yeah, I need archers at the moment. Toggle that on, right? Turn the tap up to full. Oh, now I need Ghazi. And dude, what a cool read by Puppypaw. You can build on the go with your infantry. He's doing that after he burns the houses to stop a rebuild of the houses after he's forced away. That is such a fantastic detail. I've not seen that in a while.
Yes, yeah, I'm actually shocked how good of an idea that is. I didn't even think about that, but as I usually like to say, there is a reason why this guy is playing a third place match and I'm not. But yeah, Puppypaw, I feel like he's doing a really good job against a very difficult civilization to match up against. And right now he's got double the army. Javelin throwers obviously can turn things around here, picking off the archers, but you need a lot of javelin throwers, and you simply don't have that much. And when you only have 4 of them, you can actually dive them with the archers.
Yeah, and you can't even casually snipe these Ghazi, right? They have the undermesh. They also have 20 more health than your standard horseman. It's just a big ask. And, you know, I wouldn't even be surprised if Puppypaw is able to kill all these houses, he will build a wall around that entire gold pit. You can. It's a great way of briefing people. In Delhi, really the only civ that can realistically do it like this at this stage in the game.
Yeah, and taking out the houses, something that LucifroN needs to be careful about, because he's about to get housed over here as well. His other gold mine could be exposed to the archers as well, and so far this game is looking really good here for Puppypaw, finally diving in to try and pick off some villagers on the gold mine.
force the idle time, right? He understands that there's more cattle to be built, and on top of that now, you need to get your hands on the gold to even tech up. LucifroN doesn't have that yet. He just lost one of the pit mines. He hasn't got to play onto the north side to grab more right now. So this is one pit mine play, as well as Ghazi here to raid, and you have to be very careful your positioning. LucifroN essentially has to stay on this screen. If he shifts too far out, this Ghazi could just wrap in and start sniping out cattle.
Eco, when it comes to the villager count, is neck and neck. The difference, of course, being the passive resource income for LucifroN. But Puppypaw himself, he does have a lot of passive resource income as well from the sacred sites, and that kind of puts the Ecos neck and neck. Something that's really good for Puppypaw against the Malians. Looks like LucifroN is rebuilding the pit mine, but honestly, I'm not sure if that's gonna work out well for him, because Puppypaw is gonna be more than happy diving that position once again.
Oh, he's going to be more efficient about it. He just got siege engineering, so Puppypaw could just build a ram now. Instead of just diving in and then having to trade out archers, you just force LucifroN into the engagement first with the Donzos, which means you'll be able to trade this number down. And the thing that's really, really impressive out of Puppypaw is the limited loss of Ghazi Raiders. That's going to be the MVP. When that reaches like 25, 30 max, that's when you're going to see this flood through. You're going to see this GG-type fight that will put the Malians to the true test on whether they can survive anything.
Yeah, it looks like things have stalled out here a little, and that's always alarming for Delhi against the Malians here. Especially when you consider that Puppypaw doesn't even have all 3 sacred sites. As I'm saying that he just captured the 3rd one, but it's not like that countdown has been going on for some time. And the army numbers are starting to even out. This is where the Malians are really still starting to pick up the pace. And once we have an even distribution of Dunsos and Javelin Throwers, with one large clump of units essentially, that's where it becomes very difficult for any civilization to fight this.
I think we are getting very close to a fight here, though. LucifroN's doing a dangerous thing coming out like this. There is a risk of a concave. Whenever you're on an open battlefield like this, it's not the place to be with the Malians, right? Because if you get concaved, it means double units can just attack you. The Stealth Forest is also a little bit tricky, right? The positioning of it, this is a risky move, what he's doing with the jabs right now. Kind of surprised he did not get punished for that, but Puppypaw didn't have scouting vision to go for some sort of counter-offensive with Ghazi. So LucifroN playing with fire there. I mean, you get caught by those Ghazi at the start of that engagement, but with the Donzos about half a screen away, you probably lose about 8 javelins. And at that point, Puppypaw would just dive to end the game.
Yeah, LucifroN lives and dies with those javelin throwers right now. He's got 5 more in queue. Those are the units that he needs to deal with the strongest component of Puppypaw's army, those being the archers buffed by the Tower of Victory. And this scout going down here is going to be painful for LucifroN. He's going to be completely deprived of vision. He has to rebuild one using the town center here.
Yeah, because I don't think he's gone for a stable yet, right? Because like, you're not going to scale sofas until you're in Castle Age at least. And well, he has now got the melee tech coming in. Yeah, so no stables. It genuinely is just going to be 1 villager less for him. Charging from the archers. Trying to reach into those Donzos. A line formation coming out from the Ghazis. So going around both sides of the stone outcropping. A good position for LucifroN to hold to minimize access here. Donzos, they do get in on top of the archers. Ghazi now have to commit. And this has just turned into a very messy fight. Puppypaw losing a lot of that cav already. Donzo count is going down, but it's still around 20. Javelin's behind this, adding a lot of damage in. And I can't help but feel Puppypaw just hasn't got what it takes to break through a massacre. One that will favor the Malians and give the win over instantly. LucifroN takes the 3rd.
Felt like it was too little too late, Puppypaw arriving into this fight. And again, without siege weapons, I don't think there is much that the Delhi can do against this composition. Even if you micro this well, it feels near impossible for Puppypaw to take such a good engagement against that army. Maybe if he holds off the cavalry a little more, kind of sacrifices the archers to the javelin throwers, and then uses the archers to just trade against the Dunsos, he could have maybe kept the Ghazi Raiders alive a little more, allow himself to get a raiding potential. But this direct engagement just did not work out for him. And with that, LucifroN moves on to match point here in the 3rd place match.
Yeah, it had that kind of feeling of a lack of sensing where you are in the game, if that makes sense. Like, from Puppypaw's position, I think he was worried that LucifroN must have been close to having Fulani, right? Like, you see that you've got a bigger army, you see that he hasn't started teching up yet. I think that's the point in the game when you look at the clock as Delhi, you're like, oh, I haven't got sacred sites. Like, I'm not counting down that win condition. he could just rush up any second. And you understand that if he does, if he gets just one tech up out, you're dead anyway. So it looks a little bit weird the way that that plays, but I think it's more on LucifroN playing really well around his position. Even small details like that final fight, he retreated to the stone outcropping, which forced the Ghazi to split up on two sides and meant his Donzo were able to be more efficient with their body blocks. Small details like that are going to make the difference at this level of play, and it was a big difference in this game. But something that is not going to be different in the next game, we are getting Delhi back to back, this time in the hands of LucifroN. He finds himself up on match point 2-1 versus Puppypaw. He will go for something tried and true on Hillendale. It's going to be Delhi. Puppypaw, meanwhile, getting a bit experimental here. It's the new kid on the block, the Zhuxi's Legacy, a civ that many folk have a hot opinion about right now. Let's see if Puppypaw can add to the Reddit rants.
Jumping into game number 4 here, folks. LucifroN with the Delhi Sultanate matching up against Puppypaw's Zhuxi's Legacy. This is the last home map of Puppypaw here in the 3rd place match of the EGC 2023 finals. And you touched on this in the pregame here for a moment. LucifroN does have the tried and tested civilization here, something that thrives when the opponents are playing passive. On the other side, Puppypaw does have this new kid on the block civilization. Remains to be seen how he's going to approach this. Now, one thing I'm noticing is that we have a fairly large opening at the front of both players' bases, and that usually helps the aggressors in this game. Will make it a little bit more difficult for Puppypaw to protect his base against an aggressive Delhi player.
That is true. I think the thing that's quite frustrating with the Delhi, though, is it's not about your base, right? It's usually about the sacred sites. They are positioned in a way that you have to come out your base. One thing that is interesting about Zhuxi's Legacy on this map, we've seen a lot of the Chinese, and we've seen the way that they can kind of, struggle sometimes on Hillendale because of that wood starvation. This version of the Civ doesn't have that same issue. Because of Song Dynasty, they're able to actually last a lot longer on a lot less wood. So that might be a critical detail here, especially if Puppypaw chooses to go for a more greedy opening. First thing I am already looking for, by the way, is the MVP Meditation Garden location. We could even see him run out into the middle of the map. Like, genuinely, there are some good spots out on that north side if you mainly want gold or stone.
I mean, that's a great place to meditate at.
I mean, I would only be able to dream about gold there, right? Like, that's 60 gold, that's 64 food. This one would be 48 food, 30 gold, and about 20, 25 wood, which is not bad considering it's very close to your base. I think that's
looking
the
at
silly
the
thing,
Zhuxi here. What I'm actually wondering if we could actually see a very heavy commitment to Chugenu. Because as much as they are outranged by the Delhi archers, especially, it's going to get even worse when you are matching up against Tower of Victory archers. Mass Chukunu is one of the more oppressive things that you can do with Chinese and the variants of this civilization. And it's definitely something that could be capable of countering LucifroN's map control style play.
Yeah, sorry, my brain's still on Meditation Garden because I just can't get over this landmark. Like, one thing I was kind of thinking that's kind of like insane with this right now. It's bad enough the way the casino plays out, but I think the baffling part is just when you're able to always drop a landmark this close to your home and get so much resources like that. That landmark right there is 3 villages. It's going to be over 100 resources, right? So he's going to get the 30 from the stone, I think it was, the 48 from the food, and then he's going to probably get like 25 at least from wood. So that's over 100. Kind of wild the way this landmark works right now. Someone that could work to LucifroN's advantage with that Meditation Garden placement, though, is like this is a civ that actively wants to produce units, and the way you counter Meditation Garden is by flooding units underneath it.
Certainly, although it's not on the direct approach towards Puppypaw's base. So I would be surprised if LucifroN committed a lot of forces to the southern portion of Puppypaw's base here. I feel like it's going to be more about just, as you said, flooding units and just trying to finish off Zhuxi before they really catch on to their power. Now, LucifroN can do that in various ways. He is aging up with the Dome of Faith, so it's not going to be about the Tower of Victory archers. It could be against, or it could be about mass healing with a lot of scholars. Or it could also be one of those builds where you just build a bunch of scholars and age up very quickly, grab a bunch of technologies, and then start flooding units with efficient production.
Yeah, I think this is just about efficient timing on all 3 sacred sites. Like, You want to actually force Yuji to come out so they don't just have eco benefits. And this is a cool way of doing it because it's going to put the pressure on Puppypaw really quickly. On top of that, this is really effective like the double blacksmith build with that delayed military you're talking about. And in a game like this, I think that LucifroN actually wants to play mostly Ghazi Raiders anyway, which you can already see by the fact he's dropping the stables. Makes a lot of sense. I think for Puppypaw, he might try to build Horsemen to block out the Sacred Site caps. He might consider Zhuge Nu rather to go on the offensive. Spearmen mostly likely don't need to be built to defend his own base, though. Well, he will be able to get them efficiently, though. This is one thing that's kind of crazy, that Jiangnan Tower. It gives you, I like to call it just the tax rebate. So Jiangnan Tower, if you build a Rax, you get a Spearman for free. If you build a stable, you get a Horseman for free. So bare minimum, you're getting an 80 resource refund on 150 resource investment, which is, I think that's what's making Juji kind of mind-boggling for people a lot at the moment, is all these cost reductions they get in the mid-game that other civs can only dream of.
Yeah, speaking of cost reductions, one of the cool things you get from the Jiangnan Tower combined with the Meditation Gardens is a massive wood discount on the buildings now that you are in Song Dynasty. And that's something that is immensely powerful for Jushi, allowing them to go for an early farm transition perhaps, allowing them to get a second town center going when you're so heavy on the stone, something that gets scouted immediately by LucifroN. But it's something that allows them to play with a very condensed base, because they do not need to move out for additional sources of food.
Yeah, it's like the thing that baffles me with Juji at the moment, I think, is making Song a bit too good, more than any other detail. It's not the fact that TCs build quickly and are the cost of old TCs over a year ago. It's actually the granary transition. Granary transition is, like, for standard Chinese, probably the most dangerous point in their game, right? Like, if you play some Chinese, you know exactly what I'm talking about. You feel like you're holding the game well, then all of a sudden you have to invest like 2,000-3,000 wood in a full farm transition. Imagine getting a 40% discount on that. That's what the Juji get. It's why I've literally watched Juji players with no issue at all transition into granaries at like 9 minutes. I could never have dreamed of Chinese being able to do that a year ago, but this Civ really did change the mid-game with the Chinese.
Scout goes down here from Puppypaw. He's going to be completely blind in this game. No vision whatsoever for him. He does have a couple of spearmen to defend against this Ghazi raid, but he needs to be cautious because the spearmen aren't really hanging around the villagers building that town center.
Ghazi? Oh, perfect time here. Puppypaw doesn't have the spearman nearby, so that's going to idle him out. I love the fact he starts torching to force a rebuild there instead of allowing him to just walk away. But Spear's finally there to react. However, this is still idle time that is adding up, right? Puppypaw with villagers not working and also not building.
Oh, certainly. This is all about just slowing down Puppypaw over here. Keep in mind, every 20 or so seconds that you have that town center, it's a villager. You delay it by half a minute, that means villagers lost essentially for Puppypaw.
The other crazy thing about this is, like, you can see what LucifroN was thinking there. If he bought a few more seconds, if he idles them out for another 10 seconds, archers get there, and that's when villagers start dying. Like, these are the small differences we highlighted in a few different games that just break the game wide open that players of this caliber are thinking about. And LucifroN, well, he's thinking about taking control of all the sacred sites, right? That's the power of this Dome of Faith build, already up to 4. However, great read by Puppypaw. He walks out, and that is about as good as it gets with trading with the Deli. Killing a scholar for a spear.
Oh, that's a marvelous, marvelous pickup. What's alarming for Puppypaw, though, is that his spears are now being countered by archers, and not just 2 archers that we see over here. We already have 8 archers. A very similar approach taken as some of the horsemen get butchered by the spears here. Very similar approach taken by LucifroN compared to what Puppypaw did in the previous game. Going very heavy on the production over here, just trying to overwhelm his opponent.
Horseman trying to get the charge in, but Ghazi are going to be there to block him. This is an interesting matchup for the Surge reason. We've highlighted with Delhi their ability with the military efficiency to double production. Puppypaw with the Juji are kind of just as threatening. The way the Jiangnan Tower works, it produces units 3 times faster, and it produces a unit for every building you build on a Civ that builds quicker than any other one in the game. So what that gives Puppypaw is these moments where he just floods the field, right? Intermittently. It's not sustainable long-term. I mean, admittedly, I've literally watched Don Artie spam buildings to build an army, and it works. But on average, it's usually about adding, like, say, 3 stables in, and all of a sudden in the next 30 seconds you have 6 horsemen. Kind of nuts when you put it in that kind of frame, because that's not something that's usually possible outside of these interesting perks like the military efficiency or the Yorishiro and Castle Age.
Horseman
is not
just
going to
in
go
time to
up.
prevent the walls, might even be able to pick up that Scholar.
I don't know if he can hang around long enough for the Scholar. That might be a bit tight because the Ghazi do hit hard, but killing the 2 archers is good. It just keeps this open for the time being. Looks like he will be forced to the north side. Might lose another horseman on the exit. Just about gets away with it. Walls have gone up at home. So Puppypaw is now creating this funnel point at the front of his base. His goal right now is just to minimize the gold income of LucifroN as he continues to eco-boom up with the Chinese.
Oh, certainly. It's all about dragging this game out here and leveraging that 2DC build that he's having. At the same time, he's getting confined into his base now. 8 horsemen against 10 Ghazi Raiders, but he's also facing a bunch of archers, and looks like LucifroN's mixing his spears as well. Spears that Puppypaw doesn't really have a good answer to right now.
No, he'd need to get into the Chuganu, and the issue with that as well is like this is going to be a game where, because of the build you've gone for, you haven't gone blacksmiths. Meanwhile, you're up against Dome of Faith Delhi, which means they should have blacksmith techs coming in. LucifroN was a bit delayed in that regard. You notice he only just teched the undermesh. It's surprising because typically when we see this type of build with the Dome of Faith, it's usually accompanied by double blacksmiths. Instead, this was a very slow first blacksmiths and no secondary. Is he going to actually try to break base? This is... I mean, I'm seeing that he's pumping siege engineering, but we saw this from Puppypaw in the last game, and not a ram was built at all. But this does have that airings of trying to take out that front TC. Like, it is very exposed here. And at the moment, he does have military mass advantage. Now, one thing to keep in mind with what I said about the blacksmiths, if Puppypaw sees what he's up against, he can rush build a blacksmith and then supervise it to get the increased damage. That's the one he needs, but he's already going to be too late. Ghazi, they move in on the TC. Spearman following this up, and a big massive archer. So Puppypaw not in a position to take a fight right now because his horsemen are marching across the map far, far away. And I think LucifroN's going to realize it fast.
Yeah, horsemen just not there. They could be great when it comes to raiding, although you do have Spearman back at home for LucifroN. He's actually committing against this town center. Puppypaw completely forfeiting the TC here.
I mean, you have no choice here, right? The problem now is because you don't fight this, it makes it obvious to LucifroN that the horsemen are away, which means he should be paying attention to his own economy. It's about to hit the back of the base. LucifroN, with a quick pull away, is going to lose 1 or 2 villages for his troubles. The rest should make it to safety. Now, he needs to get some spearmen out here because that is a lot of cav that will continue to dive.
Yeah, a lot of eco lost here and idled from LucifroN. But don't forget, Puppypaw is going to have his cavalry cleaned up, and at the same time, his own eco is now suffering as well.
Yep, Ghazi just baiting the spearmen out of range here. Just trying to make sure you can get those good exchanges. There's not many Ghazi left here because they are diving under the TC, under the outpost, and the Chuginu. But there might be just enough to clean up here. Puppypaw with a lot of idle eco. LucifroN starting to get back to work as the last of the horsemen is going to fall. But this army is staying a lot longer. Archer count looking healthy, even under all these defenses. Economy, I think they've actually hit it on the south side. If we check just down to the south, the granary transition is underway from Puppypaw by the looks of it. So this is a very fragile point in the game. But the problem is that LucifroN, he doesn't know about it. His archers never check there. And even though he should clean up the remaining army, it's just out of vision.
But there's got to be nothing that defends it. Eventually, he's going to find it. Now he's starting to pick off villagers as well. He still has 2 sacred sites that boost his fragile eco right now. He lost a lot of vills, but he's making up for it with the sacred sites.
Go for the
At the same time, if he knew that Puppypaw only has 3 army on the field, he would just dive deeper and pick off some more vills.
Honestly, I thought LucifroN was going to go for a ram. I think that's the detail that's missing. After you take the army, after you take the trade, if you just put a ram here and destroy these buildings, then he is dead. But yeah, Puppypaw, I don't know, honestly, I don't know if that was a misclick. It kind of felt like a misclick. He built a Palace Guard. Palace Guard are actually not very efficient to build in Feudal Age for the Zhujis. Their stats are a little bit too low for their costs, and they have less ranged armor than other variants, right? Like I said, the problem here is the Steeled Arrow is going to be there on one side, and yeah, we're only now getting the blacksmiths. Like, this is the crazy detail. Imagine if Puppypaw had stopped off for the blacksmiths first and got the Steeled Arrow in that engagement. I actually think LucifroN's army is dead, because that would have upgraded the damage to the outpost, the TC, and tripled, or rather added 33% damage to the Zhuji. It's a very big buffer at this stage that was just missing there.
Second wave is now coming in, but he's given a little time here for Puppypaw to regroup, and at the end of the day, Puppypaw still has the advantage when it comes to worker kills, and he had that second town center going for himself as well. So this kind of a rest period for Puppypaw is coming in clutch.
Yeah, and this is a fortified outpost. It's not going to die fast. Instead, LucifroN's going to die fast. And that's kind of problematic here, right? Like, you've just lost most of your frontline cav. It's just archers and a ram. And the issue with that is that usually we'll trade that out every day of the week. I mean, sure, you've got the edge for the second, but the Steeled Arrow is going to come in first for Puppypaw. Outpost, slow to go down, but almost gone. And once that is gone, he could start to flood the south side of the economy if he could just get a few more Ghazi in here.
Still two sacred sites for LucifroN here. Never captured the third one, but he does have a lot of momentum. Still double the army for him right now. Reinforcing this position is a lot easier for Puppypaw, though. He does have the production nearby. Production that's slowly being taken out by the battering ram.
Yeah, but it needs to be taken out fast. You saw how many new Puppypaws that just pumped up behind this. Like, this is the thing that's getting scary to me right now. This is a game where Delhi are about to lose military count in their favor, and they're this heavily behind on economy. Puppypaw is holding, and Puppypaw is starting to turn it. And he even has the undermesh coming in soon, so damage reduction from those archers that are attacking into him. Not to mention the horsemen are now not counted anymore. Ghazi raider count is pathetic, I guess is the best way to describe it in this game. LucifroN just can't get it together anymore. Sure, he's got a decent amount of archers, but they aren't going to be able to break this base.
Yeah, all those villagers having been lost by LucifroN is probably catastrophic, just looking back at that one raid. If he had most of those villagers still alive, I feel like he would have had enough momentum. But lost 10 villagers, it took a long time for him to make up for them. He's down by 20 eco. That is just insufficient, or like the 2 sacred sites he has, it's insufficient to offset the eco deficit. And LucifroN is struggling very badly with food. He was down to 200 per minute just a moment ago.
Yeah, he has to play Pock Ecos. That's the nature of this matchup. Now, the only upside, realistically, is that this is Chige Nu, so they're not going to come out and punish you for that. But the issue that I now see is LucifroN, I don't think he can win the main engagement. And if he can't win the main engagement, it doesn't matter that the raids aren't hitting, because they will eventually just see this tide, this flood of blue units across the map. In fact, as it stands right now, they are getting closer on military count. LucifroN's at least trying to keep pace, but the issue is if we were to count production buildings in each of their bases, I think Puppypaw is going to be clearly ahead in that regard.
And let's not forget, LucifroN does not have the Tower of Victory here. He aged up with the Dome of Faith, so those are just ordinary archers, and he is getting close to capturing the third sacred site, something that has been missing very, very badly for him. He didn't put Puppypaw in onto a timer, despite Puppypaw being confined in his own base. If he had that sacred site for the last 3 or 4 minutes, this countdown would have started getting concerning for Puppy.
It's unfortunate he didn't wall that off earlier, but he needed those extra archers, right? So that left side was always a way for Puppypaw to kind of wiggle his way out of this pressure point. And by the way, the production count there, that was LucifroN. He garrisoned the building, so that was 6 compared to 8 production buildings. Puppypaw's army is going to keep getting bigger faster. So LucifroN has to go soon. Rams have been built into again. 2 this time, so double the firepower. However, against this many Chige Nu, even the Rams can die quickly. This is not looking good. 1 Palace Guard leads the charge. Oh my god, he's still not dead. OP unit. We're just, of course, kidding. But this is looking like an OP combo. 47 Chige Nu. LucifroN hasn't got the Ghazi to kill this.
Puppypaw is getting very close to evening this series out, and he would take this third place match into a decider if he did.
I think that's it. Like, there's no way that LucifroN can beat this army. The horsemen are dead. It's now Chige Nu versus archers, and you're in range. The worst thing to hear. Rams just try to distract him. The A-clicks might actually bait their fire and stop them pursuing, but Sacred Sites only just got locked in, and you haven't got 10 minutes. You haven't got a shot. You'll have to make it happen in the final game, because we are going to decide this via a BO1 barn burner.
The first time in LucifroN, or in Puppypaw's career, beg your pardon, he could get a third place in a tournament. That would be the best ever tournament performance he has had. He is 1 game away from that. He was very close to getting into the grand finals even, losing in the decider game against Vortex. Let's see if he can take out Vortex's brother, LucifroN, here to secure that third place that he so much wants.
Man, it's going to be a crazy one, right? I'm trying to think what civs they've got remain they could whip out here. In terms of bans, they both banned the Mongols. Puppypaw banned the Japanese. LucifroN banned the Rus, right? So Intrigued to see what we're going to be cooking with in a game number 5. The map, was it Canal? No, it's Gorge. Okay, Gorge is the final one. So it's actually going to be Iobids versus Jeanne d'Arc. This is a very interesting matchup, actually. Jeanne d'Arc, to begin with, would have looked favored, but I've seen some very impressive fast castle builds out the Iobids that heavily discounts the ability for Jeanne and her army to fight, right? Because this is a camel civ with camel lances.
Yeah, only 45 seconds left to go here. 2 new civilizations on the block here. Jeanne d'Arc versus the Iobids. Iobids so far undefeated in this series. LucifroN won game number 1 with those. I think this is a good time to also highlight that right after this set, we will have the grand finals, Beastie facing off against the Vortex in a lovely best of 9. Thank you so much, everybody, for joining us today. If you haven't done so already, this is a great time to also follow the Twitch channel because we are very, very close to that 50,000 followers mark. Help us get there as we'll be heading into game number 5 of this third place match.
Oh, yeah. And don't forget to sub to the channel. I know some people complain about the ads. This is about to be a hype game to decide the third place. Then we've got a hype series, a best of 9 between the 2 best of this tournament. I would not want an ad to get in the way of your experience. So fix that fast. Let's fix up another serving of high intense Age of Empires 4 action. Game 5, Puppypaw and the Iobids, LucifroN on Jeanne d'Arc. It's decided here in the most gorgeous of gorges.
Jeanne d'Arc versus the Iobids. Interesting matchup over here of the 2 new DLC civilizations. And a gold mine that spawns all the way at the back, not something that you commonly see on Gorge. Definitely a unique map spawn for LucifroN. This map spawns such that the gold mines are somewhat mirrored, so with the gold mine spawning at the back for LucifroN, the same applies to Puppypaw. But this is not the common way that this map spawns. Usually you have your gold on the front.
Yeah, that's actually interesting because now that's happened on both sides, there is a world in which we maybe see some trade wing bazaar action. It's very uncommon for the Iobids because of the nerfs, right? To the tech up timings and also the gold cost. But one of the big reasons why it never came out on Gorge is because what you just mentioned, the gold was always front spawning. This is one of those games where you might be able to get away from it and get away with it. I imagine in this matchup particularly, Puppypaw still just wants to go for the faster tech timing, so we're probably looking at either a military wing into advancement or growth into advancement here.
Yeah, I'm curious how Puppypaw is going to approach this, but just as a reminder, folks, especially because I think this might be a game-by-game upload to the EGC VOD storage on YouTube, this is game number 5, and Puppypaw, he's seeking his first ever third place finish in a tournament. That would be his best performance ever. Whereas for LucifroN, he's looking for that kind of silver lining after being the champion of one of the preceding events of the EGC fall season. Wasn't able to take out Beastie yesterday, but he might be able to secure a third place for himself here.
It's kind of a very interesting matchup in that regard, right? So what you're saying there, Puppypaw looking to end the year on a high, LucifroN essentially looking for the consolation prize, because what you're alluding to there is, he was able to take Call to Arms where he beat Beastie in that grand final, but this time around won't get a shot at it. He has to rely on good old bro Vortex to do the work. Ibid upgrade coming in. It is going to be the reinforcement wing. So I actually quite like this choice. For a start, it just gives you some flexibility to play the map. Another thing is it's really good against the Jeanne d'Arc civ because A, Jeanne is not going to be the range form. No one goes Hunter because that's the quickest way to lose games, it feels like, which means you can pick away at her a health ball without engaging. And piece 2 is you're going to have the Camel Unease aura up against these knights that Jeanne is immediately going to go into.
For now, School of Cavalry on the way from LucifroN, building it up with 3 workers, including Jeanne. Definitely a more expedited progress towards Feudal Age. Whereas on the other side, Puppypaw, he is heavy on wood. The UI does not show that he's aging up, but he definitely is. Let's take a look at what he's aging up with, and he's going up with the reinforcements. So he's going to have that one Desert Raider out there that he can use to harass the enemy gold mine, but it's also going to be a great tool to deal with the initial knight coming out from Jeanne d'Arc.
Yeah, that's literally what we were just saying, right? Is because this is just the predicted opening. Like, Jeanne's not going to go for anything else first. This is also going to force her to go into archers quicker, which is, it can actually be a trap. Because if you do fall for it and you go into archers as Jeanne, the follow-up move for Ibids is going to be the Castle Age and open with Camel Lancers, because then you're up against a few Knights and a lot of Archers. That's not going to win out against Camel Lancers. So we'll have to see if LucifroN makes the right call here. Tech up is complete. We did use free in the end. And I believe with that kind of scaling, usually LucifroN's one of those players that sets Jean up in a way that she can start moving out towards the ball and age up as she reaches it. But it looks like he may have been forced to rush up a bit faster, considering her pip hasn't moved from the base yet.
Yeah, Lancer is going to be on the way here. Of course, with Jean, you're looking to take out those boards for extra experience, and one of those boards is very conveniently located for LucifroN, all the way in the far eastern corner. The other one is going to be much more difficult to grab. It's going to be all the way to the far west, something that's very close to Puppypaw's base.
Did we do a sheep count, by the way? I think this is more important for LucifroN because he has to have that runway. Yeah, so not too bad at this point in the game. Still have 9 remaining. Puppypaw, I believe he did go on the berry straight away, right? As you should here. So it looks like even Stevens in that regard. Well, I say even Stevens. Puppypaw would have less if he went on berries, right? Because LucifroN's been exploiting the sheep. So good tidings. I've seen games for Jean end because they didn't get any sheep. In fact, one of the players in this very series experienced that pain when he got only 2 sheep in an opening game against the Spanish guy. I think I gave away who I'm talking about. So it is that much of a crippling detail for Jean, just because, especially in this matchup, where if we are talking about fast castle, it means you'll have to play out of safety onto the map in a matchup where both of you are going to have heavy cavalry.
Yeah, Jean is still on berries, by the way. LucifroN is yet to move out towards any of those boars. So she needs a little bit more XP. There she is. First Knight is on the way, and this is a beautiful angle from LucifroN. We know that he loves his Knight micro. Quick reaction from Puppypaw pulls away the villagers. It's so difficult dealing with the Knights from LucifroN. He's one of the best, if not the best, Knight micro players right now in the game. But Puppypaw's quick reaction means that there wasn't any damage done on those vills.
Yeah, it's not just about micro, it's about game sense, right? Like the instinct to know that was happening. You saw what he done. He actually prepped the wall just as the Knight arrived. So he already knew this timing and exactly where it was going to encroach from. So great read by both players. Wouldn't have it any other way. I wouldn't want to see these Knights just getting easy licks that early that define the entire game. Puppypaw is about to define the meaning of fast tech up timings here. Castle Age is ready to rock. He's got enough food about to be dropped off, and that is very clearly the advancement wing on the way. Meanwhile, LucifroN, not really that high in XP. You wouldn't expect it at this stage in the game, and funnily enough, this is where the Ibids are a good counter to Jean, not just because of the reliance on camels against a Cav Civ, it's the fact that you can rush up Castle Age efficiently like this. At such an early point in the game, there's no risk that Jean will have level 3.
Nice little push of deer here by Puppypaw means that he's going to have a little extra supply of food underneath his town center. Something that comes in very handy when you are using or when you're playing against a player that uses these Knights so well to raid. Having such a condensed economy makes it so much easier for Puppypaw to avoid villager casualties to LucifroN's Knights.
Absolutely, which of course on top of that avoids giving XP over to Jean when she starts to arrive for the party as well. Decent amount of wolves have been found. Wolves are actually kind of better than boar on average, just because there's only 2 boar, they give 25 XP each. On average, there's about, like, what, 8 wolves per map, right? So there's a lot more XP if you can get lucky and find it. So nice little opening there. It's going to need everything you can get, because the sad reality of what's about to happen here is with the Castle Age on the horizon, the units that Puppypaw is going to be producing won't die easily. You won't easily be able to be in range with Jean. In fact, if anything, if Jean walks into the wilderness and discovers one of these camel lancers, they are going to take a giant chunk out of her.
And LucifroN, he is heavy on the spearmen here. Something that we don't commonly see this early from the French or even Jeanne d'Arc, a French variant civilization. But against the Camel Lancers, it is a setup that works fairly well. The concern I feel like for LucifroN is that a combination of Camel Lancers and Desert Raiders will still be challenging to deal with. And boy, Jeanne gets caught in the middle of nowhere over here. Not a fight that she wants to take.
She's going to try. That's kind of a waste of cleaves because there's a lot of melee armor on these units anyway, right? So that's why the Camel Raiders are so confident. Lancers are also on the way. Knights are arriving. The timing on this means the Lancer tanks the blow. And that's brilliant because now the Camel Raiders, with their bonus damage, being glass cannons, are able to counter this out. A force away, LucifroN has to run for the high hills. Luckily for him, that 1.36 movement speed on Jean means she can run away quite effectively.
Yeah, for now time being, LucifroN gets pushed back over here. Has to call all the Spearmen out of his base here to try and deal with this. Looking to take a fight here with the Spearmen approaching. And
Nice
he does
snipe.
take out one of the Desert Raiders. So one less unit that can switch to a bow and then deal with these Spearmen.
Imagine just being like the IBID playing the situation, like, wait, that was a free unit. What do you mean he gets paid XP for it? Yeah, he gets paid a lot of XP as well, right? Like, although you're getting these Camel Raiders for free, if you had to build them, they cost 180 resources, hence sniping these glass cannons out is a very efficient way of farming XP for Jean. So Puppypaw needs to be a little bit careful with them. They are very useful to deal with these spears, though, because they have that ranged melee hybrid. It means that they can poke and prod down spears, similar to how Camel Archers of the Abbasids would.
LucifroN also detached one of the knights from this group. He has one knight roaming the left side of the map. That is the one that's linking up with this force right now. He was looking to get some raids going while the main fight was happening. Wasn't able to do that. Speaking of raids, first villager casualty of the game is going to be on the side of a LucifroN. These Desert Raiders getting some value on those berries.
Yeah, so the problem is the Desert Raiders, they get spotted diving until they just die, right? So unfortunately, he loses one of those because now he doesn't have an answer to the main mass right now. And what makes it kind of more dangerous is what Puppypaw's follow-up is. Naturally, he's trying to now play for relics with the dervishes onto the flanks. If he gets spotted leaving the base, that's just going to be more XP farming for Jean.
And look at what LucifroN is up to. He's not fully committing to this push. Instead, he's going to be on the way to Castle Age himself. And this is getting dicey for Puppypaw. He's making crossbows. Good against the knights, not so good against Jean plus the spearmen. But more importantly, Puppypaw is confined within his own base, and he is going to start losing that tech advantage as well.
Now, keep in mind, though, that Puppypaw's read on what unit to build here is actually perfect against everything LucifroN wants to do. He has knights. When he goes into Castle Age, actually the most standard play right now for Jean is to start spamming men-at-arms, so he will have an army to defend with. My concern lies out on the map, though. Jeanne d'Arc has not been Jeanne d'Arc, right? She's not been getting much XP in this game so far. That changes when you reach Castle Age. There are 3 sacred sites nicely clumped together in the mid that Jean can capture for 50 XP a pop. That will be a big booster that should allow, even without fighting, Jean to reach level 3 around 14-15 minutes.
And Spearman a little detached from the Knights over here. Camel Lancers looking for an opportunity. They won't be given one, but at least Puppypaw is able to take this relic for himself here. So good job kind of crawling out of his base, just securing enough spot to get a little bit more gold from those relics. Castle Age is going to be in as well for LucifroN. He decided to age up with the Guild Hall. Will give him a nice little extra boost of resources. And he's also moved out towards the Boar and the Hunt in this corner. Something that could easily be a target for raiding. So I love how he's approaching these dropping towers preemptively.
Yeah, and Guild Hall just feels way too good in the game right now. Like, I'm always perplexed whenever I see Raw Institute. It just feels like Jeans don't want to be in Castle Age and have a big enough night count to ever justify it. This now gives him a lot of flexibility later in the game. He can just actually reliably stay at home with a lack of gold access and be fine. He can go to Stone to get a keep drop eventually. Something that is cool coming out from Puppypaw, you saw he dropped the Blacksmiths. He's gone into the Steeled Arrows. Hoping he's going for Mamluk's Bravery soon. Mamluk's Bravery is really good when you're scaling crossbows like this, because it means that you're countering out the unit mass on the other side, which means you're more often being buffed, which gives that very heavy 25% increase in damage. So I'll have to see if that comes into the picture in the next minute or two. Little raid on the flank here. Camel Lance is incredibly tanky. Villagers have shown not so much.
Yeah, this is beautiful, and just lovely to see Puppypaw preemptively body blocking those villagers, preventing them from fleeing. Knights coming just in time, though.
Dude, that was sick. LucifroN, he does lose one villager, but he lives right up against the edge of the sword there, keeping that outpost alive. And Puppypaw, really paranoid about engaging there, right? Like, you know, he doesn't know where Jean is, so he doesn't want to risk feeding over 25 XP a pop, because these Camel Lancers, of course, cost a premium compared to those normal knights.
Yeah, so far, Puppypaw is the one that's doing better when it comes to raids, though. These raids aren't massive, but he managed to chip away with 4 villagers from the opposing player. Also, quick to secure some relics, though LucifroN himself is starting to pick up some of those. As you said, though, beautiful micro by LucifroN, keeping that tower alive. And that's crucial. He could have lost like 4 or 5 villagers there, only lost 1.
Yeah, and then the other thing as well, on those relics, the Lay of the Lands, probably still going to be a free relic for Puppypaw, but realistically should be 2 relics for LucifroN. One detail to that land I love from Puppypaw, he's parked 2 camels on the north side near the berries to wait for that move out for the relic. Meanwhile, looks like LucifroN is going to be moving in with his knight onto the back line. Puppypaw a little bit slow to move away here. Some villagers, oh no. Are you stuck, little villager? They're stuck. I've seen that before. The walls are a bit tricky sometimes. When you have a chopped tree in a wall, sometimes a villager gets stuck. It is unfortunate. You can get them out by deleting the wall, but probably not the best move when there's knights on the horizon.
Army numbers still fairly close, but army value double right now for Puppypaw. He's got 12 Camel Lancers, and I think the alarming thing right now for LucifroN is that most of his army is slow. It's Spearmen, and he's struggling to keep pace with all these Camel Lancers roaming the map.
The thing that I'm looking for now is like that pocket economy of LucifroN seems risky, right? But I think he actually has the perfect number of villagers out here. I also love the fact that he's been rallying sheeps over there. It's just allowing him to dispatch with concern for his economy at all, right? And now we're going to start seeing him scale more and more into these spears. He's been consecrating them. He's also now adding in the Prairie, which can trade very well against the crossbows due to the Pavis. So, interesting comp from LucifroN. I'm favoring it if he can dodge scrappy engagements for several more minutes, but Puppypaw has a very strong point ahead of him right now with this mass amount of Camel Lancers. I mean, the army value just speaks for itself.
Yeah, that army value is what's scary, I feel. And also the mobility advantage. Now Camel Lancers hitting the south. And at the same time, the Lumberjacks as well. This is just a diversion. The main show is on the wood line of LucifroN. And now LucifroN has to flee, starting to lose a lot of villagers. He lost 10 workers in this game, KP. And it's starting to get very dicey for him.
Yeah, it's getting worse and worse, because remember, Jeanne d'Arc, like this Civ does not have the faster production time on TCs. That's one of the negatives compared to standard French. So there hasn't been this eco lead that's been building. On top of that, right, relic control, sacred sites as well. The thing that's cool about these dervishes is they're so fast, they can actually rampantly move out and capture sacred sites. Right now, LucifroN, realistically, the only person that can do that is Jeanne. And Jeanne right now is needed everywhere. She's meant to be the savior of France, but right now, France is screaming in pain. Raids keep hitting on these flanks. And it feels very difficult to ever punish these Lancers, considering you're mirroring their movement speed.
We've seen this in game number 1, KP. A fairly open map where Camel Lancers are dominant, because in order for LucifroN to match their mobility, he needs cavalry. But Camel Lancers are meant to counter cavalry. Means that LucifroN, the only thing that he can do is make slow-moving infantry that is unable to keep pace with all these fast-moving camels.
Yeah, and there's two types of games that happen on Gorge. Only two types. Those that involve a lot of walls, and those that involve none. Funnily enough, Puppypaw is trying to stick us into the first category. He started to wall himself up. We might not get to that stage, but we might get a rare game in that Jeanne isn't doing that. LucifroN still hasn't placed a single wall to protect themselves. And you start to feel like they should, right? Like, you're not ready for a fight this wide. You do not have that flexibility due to the Spearman reliance. And it means Camel Lancers keep finding freebies like this. They were waiting for the grab on the relic. And instead of just getting the prelate or priest rival that's going up there, they also get 2 villages as well.
Clever move by LucifroN, concealing some of his lumberjacks on the very far eastern side of his wood line. So something that Puppypaw wasn't able to scout. Still, there is a villager discrepancy of 11 now, added to the fact that you have a relic lead as well for Puppypaw. And this is starting to look pretty inspiring for him, especially when you consider that the army value is still heavily in his favor.
Speaking of inspired, can we check the blacksmiths as the Ibids? I want to see if he's got the Mamluk's bravery now. It's actually a really important part for the upcoming fight. Yeah, so he hasn't gone for it yet. I think he should be going into it soon. Like, we're getting to that point where main engagement is going to happen, and these crossbows are going to make or break the fight. The reason it's important is actually if you get the buff out from killing units with those crossbows, their damage increase actually negates Pavis. So kill the spearmen and then offset the advantages that Arbitrary have up against your crossbows. It's a really scary element in the upcoming fight. Love to see that LucifroN is actually insulating those crossbows further. I think that is actually Gambeson's coming in, so he's going to have the extra melee armor. I'm not sure how much of a difference it's going to make up against camels that hit this hard, though.
Yeah, 38 crossbows on the side of Puppypaw against only 17 Pavis Arbaletier from LucifroN. And at raw numbers advantage, it's starting to get alarming for LucifroN. He does have a lot of troops on the field. The numbers are neck and neck. But a lot of these troops are just spearmen, something that won't really fare well until the cavalry charges in. Something that I expect Puppypaw to just hold in reserve until he's ready to take out the remaining spearmen.
Yeah, do you know someone else that's really scary in this game, actually, is the fact that Puppypaw, because he went for the military wing reinforcements, can actually build Manganiques with those Lancers very quickly. That's quite worrisome because LucifroN's army moves slow. So if they took a fight in like one of these choke points, he will just lose to one single Manganique. So I wonder if we'll see it soon. I mean, it's one of those things that a lot of players kind of forget because you don't usually want to do it with cavalry. You could just do it with the crossbows. But it's the idea that he can flex on where he builds it and build it fast. Flash coming out. Baits the Pavis instantly. We'll look to back away. Awkward. Now you do not have that extra ranged armor. Spearmen have not been upgraded yet. Puppypaw is also going into the Phalanx, so if this turns into a spear on spear, it'll be better for him. And looks like level 3 is in for LucifroN. So Jean d'Arc looking to fight now. They're going to charge for the Lancers, not paying attention. Puppypaw holding them back as he steps back the crossbows. He needs a wrap onto the Arbaletier. It's not going to be clean then. Instead, he gets the auto aggro in with the Lancers. Immediately regrets it, and LucifroN is playing forward. Start a step back, and Puppypaw now in line formation. That should reset things. So a chip out of each other, but Puppypaw not willing to commit for a good reason because these boys came for a party in the city of the French. It looks like he's maybe going to find the wood this time. Another interesting detail, actually. I don't think he's got a Lancer in there. If he did, Lancers actually have... No, he definitely does. They have more vision.
Oh, man!
That choke
the
point!
trap
What?
once again!
They're basically ring-a-rosing themselves right now. I can't believe LucifroN somehow saves the villagers here, but it works.
And this was a massive call here from Puppypaw, splitting off his forces, trying to raid while taking this fight. And it does not work out because those Camel Lancers just got trapped in a choke point. So much of a deja vu to game number 2 KP, where LucifroN lost all those horsemen in a choke point fight.
And once again, he's losing cavalry. It turns out, you know, like so many units died. I mean, it's the other way this time, right? So it almost feels like karma balancing the universe again. And LucifroN really needed that in this type of game. Army value was in Puppypaw's favor. Eco is most definitely in his favor. He needed to catch a break, and this could be a big one. Military Academy now on the way, so doubling down on that spearman mass. And this is pretty cool. LucifroN, the goal is now to never lose Arbaletier. Scale them slower because they never die. They're your premium unit. Spearmen are your cannon fodder. It's an ambitious approach that maybe wouldn't have worked if Puppypaw was just doubling down on spears, but he's completely shirked away from that. This really is just a raw clump of crossbows to make up the Iobid forces.
Upgrades are also looking a lot better over here for LucifroN. Second range defense is missing from Puppypaw's army, but he does have a Manganique to hold this force off for a little more.
Ooh.
Looks like LucifroN is diving, though.
Wait, no, yeah, but he's left the Mangonel alone. And it didn't even hit the Arbaletier. Puppypaw just throws it away, but now he's recommitting on the backside of the fight. He gets the charge in. Jean goes down instantly and on top of the crossbows. This is the moment to commit. Pavises have been dropped, but it looks like he's baited the wrong way. LucifroN has cleared up most of the crossbows, or most of the Lancers, rather. The crossbow mass will be able to get away. Now, this is starting to get a bit scary. LucifroN, he did have to commit 500 gold for the buyback, but look at the military difference now, 44 to 54. And look how close the army value is this time around.
Can we quickly take a look at that guild hall? Because I think that's going to be a game changer. 3,700 food in there for LucifroN. I think that's what he needs to finish this game and the set.
I've seen this before, LidaKor. I've actually seen this out of his bro. You notice you've got this much food, and you just immediately drop Imperial. A red palace in the center just breaks this game. I mean, there'll be no move for Puppypaw to make now that he's got no cavalry. Start step back's looking good, but the spearmen are just cannon foddering, right? So that he gets even more XP. Jean charging in, but even for those crossbows, the 50% range reduction really does come in clutch. Divine Restoration should still be on cooldown. LucifroN living life on the edge here, but stays alive.
Now it's double the army for him, though. I feel like he's so close. Puppypaw, he gets into the third place match once again, but he might not be able to get his best ever tournament performance in once again. That third place is still so elusive for him, because now LucifroN is on a full momentum. Jean d'Arc still alive, 31 Arbaletier against just 20, 51 army against 22. I feel like LucifroN has all the momentum he needs.
This is all he needs to break it. He's edging in ever deeper. He still hasn't used the guild hall yet. Now, I think he has almost got Divine Restoration off cooldown. Keep in mind, just to the right of this engagement, Puppypaw has what I'm going to guess is about a quarter of his economy down there, maybe more. He's out on the berries, he's out on the gold. But luckily for him, LucifroN is fully committed in this. Unluckily for Puppypaw, however, the villagers do get caught out again. A few more going down. And still nothing to stop this. I mean, the problem is Jean's getting ready to recommit. She's going to go in a sec, and with so little crossbows left over, no Manjanique, there's no stopping the Maiden of France. She goes in for the charge, should be able to get a cleave out, and I believe Divine Restoration, is it there? No. She goes down, but the count is still good enough to reduce Puppypaw to nothing. And folks, this is just wave number 1. LucifroN still has more troops coming.
And he still has about 4,000 food available in that guild hall. He's picking off so many villagers. Puppypaw down to just 14 army over here. There's the second wave approaching from LucifroN. And that Manjanique is still not there. Could have helped so much in this engagement.
He hasn't even cancelled it. I mean, right now, you need any resource you can get, but you need food, right? That's the big one. Almost makes you wish you had a Siege Workshop to assist. But this right here, this is looking condemning. This entire game, LucifroN still has not used that guild hall. The moment he does,
he needs it, though.
This is over.
He's out of food. He's completely out of food. 0 food per minute
Just
for
pop
him.
it.
Sitting on 5,500. He needs it. I'm
like
wondering if he forgot. I'm genuinely wondering if he forgot right now.
I mean, he's on the berries, right? Like, honestly, this is one of those smiley face moments where you forgot, but it's actually going to be the thing that just instantly wins the game, right? Like, the moment he sees it. I feel like he'd have to not notice for 5 more minutes to start throwing this game. It's possible, but considering LucifroN's caliber, like considering the skill he has with French, on average, just the standard French, I'd be surprised.
I think he would have won this game by now if he used up that food 2 minutes ago. And I'm wondering, like, there's no point saving this anymore. 5,000 food in the bank, you just gotta grab that. I genuinely feel like he's being distracted by these fights.
No, it's fine. This is the no guild hall challenge. Look what he found! It was the moment we were waiting for. Villagers panic rushing out the other side of this, but he's already got troops rallying from his own base. Jean also going in for the big cleave, and she will be able to get in range. Oh, a little bit delayed there. Didn't hit the mass, but guess what? There are more troops coming on the north side of this, and also it's not a long wall, so Puppypaw needs to clean them up. Instead, they rally back! The villagers, so many now dead. Puppypaw behind on economy for the first time in what feels like 15 minutes at least, if not more. He still hasn't pumped it. Jean goes in for the cleave. There's just not enough damage anymore. And the Arbitria, they lasted so long here. They've traded out quite well considering how disadvantageous this fight was. But seriously, like, this has to be the point, right? Like, maybe if Jean dies, it would be a good thing here because he'd look back at his base and see that guild hall, because Puppypaw just got the breathing room to drop a castle in his base.
He must have forgotten about that, and this could cost him the game. Jean d'Arc is now gone.
He noticed.
Okay, he popped it.
He noticed. This has to be Imperial.
Late,
you have
though?
to just go Imperial. I don't think it's too late. The crossbow mass is not unbreachable. Instead, though, he's starting to pump Horsemen. Now, this is cool. If he pumps Horsemen, he can actually afford to just go Imperial and still be pushing Horsemen, which would counter the entire army of Puppypaw. Here it is, folks. He buys what he needs. Red Pulse on the way at the front of the base, and there is no possible way Puppypaw can get here in time to deny this.
11 villagers on the landmark, though. I feel like that could be a little dicey here.
Jean build speed.
Should go up.
If he just moves Jean there, if she's in range with the aura, this will go up. I think instead she's coming for the fight. She wants vengeance. Jesus, this lady's like a never-ending zombie. A very angry one at that. Once again, onto the field, and Puppypaw immediately freaks and runs, so Red Palace is going to go up. Now, not much gold to work with, so LucifroN won't instantly be able to keep upgrading these horsemen into their elite form, but he's starting to scale a scary force, which right now, Puppypaw has a grand total of 1 spearman and a camel rider to counter.
Yeah, that's a scary detail. And once we get to Imperial, we can get some cannons out for LucifroN. Suddenly, it's not going to be about walking into the base and picking off villagers. It's going to be about leveling the entire base of the enemy.
Speaking of levels, it's Mecha Jean. She's arrived. It's time to blast. She's ready to party. This unit is an army all to its own in this type of position for Puppypaw. She now hits like a truck. She takes as many hits as a truck. And by that, I mean if you were like a 10-year-old trying to punch a vehicle, like it would be as effective. I think she has 600 HP at this stage. If he ever gets biology, which he might considering scaling horseman, she goes up to over 800 health.
That one Desert Raider just so annoying to the north, and Puppypaw is stacking up resources as well for Imperial. He is not ready to get out of this just yet, and because LucifroN's gold deposit isn't really spectacular right now, he is low on gold, wasn't able to get a lot of the premium units going. I think he's even lacking some of the Imperial upgrades on his troops just yet. He is slowly getting into horsemen, does have a decent amount of crossbows. Looks like Puppypaw is gonna get an opportunity to get to Imperial though himself.
What did he go for, right? Like, it was the... Did we see the choice yet? Or is he not ready to go yet, you're saying? I'd be surprised if he, like, had to pump that quickly. But, like, when he goes up, I'd say probably Atabegs is the play here. You need that extra health, just because this does turn into quite the grind, quite the late game. The Ibids really need that extra health just to juice their units. Let's click on the House of Wisdom. Which one did he go for? Click on that. Come on, vodka. Come on. Yeah, Atabegs. It's honestly, I'm glad we're seeing this. I feel like it's just slept on so freaking often, but it's really powerful in this late game, especially if you start scaling like hand cannoneers. An extra 20% health on hand cannoneers is bonkers. When you talk about pop situations where your issue is actually you just don't have enough space to build more units, you're looking to make each of those units better. And that's exactly what Atabegs allows you to do here. They also look really funky when they stand in the buildings. I don't know how, but they apparently just like shrink to half their size and then stand there posturing.
Yeah, additional town centers have been added here by LucifroN. He wants to scale that eco up. He still has only 500 food per minute here. He did build a couple of farms, but I'm actually wondering how robust that food eco is for him. In fact, one of the big questions right now is how his guild hall is doing. He pulled away the food about 5 minutes or so ago. Should have a decent amount of resources in there again.
But you reckon he toggled it though? Because I think Stone at this stage could be a good, like, I mean, he's 4 TCs, right? Like, you basically just want to make budget red palaces everywhere, aka TCs. So maybe if we check, that's probably going to be like either Stone or Gold at this stage is usually the way you go, especially because the elite techs cost so much, and food should be being resolved. Then again, as I say that, his food looks pretty pitiful, right? Like, again, he hasn't got that mass farm spam on the backside, so Guild Hall probably still on food. Yeah.
Elite upgrades now coming in as well for Puppypaw. I feel like sustainability-wise, especially when I look at that food eco, I feel like he is in a better spot compared to LucifroN. I think that's potentially a win condition for him. A battle of attrition right now, I think, favors Puppypaw.
Puppypaw, if he can get into that Atabeg spam, right? Like right now, the army is going to trade out and not juiced up on health. So, like, if we get the elite upgrade coming, the horsemen get biology, I think LucifroN just breaks his face. The problem is these are not elite horsemen. They are still just pitiful little veteran boys. In fact, this many crossbowmen would just kill them. Almost instantly. So back away. We have also now only just got the upgrade for Consecration coming in. That's because LucifroN only had a keep once he dropped his Imperial Age landmark, which means he hasn't been getting the wood and gold discount on any units he's been building out of the Consecrated buildings. That now is going to give the 25% discount on top of the food that it was always discounted by 25%.
Army number is looking good for Puppypaw, though. He is almost up to pop cap. He has good upgrades as well. A lot of the elite techs are in for him. Elite upgrades are just now coming in for LucifroN, despite him being about in Imperial for about, what, 3, 4, 5 minutes? Beautiful mangonel shot, by the way. Sacred Site victory. Right now, a win condition for LucifroN, unless these Sacred Sites do get decapped by Puppypaw, which will happen in an instant.
Could you imagine if he legit had just stood on the edge there, not on top of it, and it just, like, kept counting down that whole time? No, never. The trade, by the way, in this stage of the game, like with the incendiary arrows, is going to be very scary. Puppypaw only has one single Manjanique, and also, this is the scary element. Puppypaw, he had to wall himself in because he went for an infantry cob. LucifroN has still had a healthy number of cab units. They all just got elited up, which means it's time to yeet out of here if you're the Iobid economy. This horseman at this stage hitting for 16 each against those villagers, it would be a massacre. Instead, he's going to hide right up against the edge on the north. And it looks like the raid is coming into the farms instead.
It's such a turnaround. 10 minutes ago, it was Puppypaw with the raid advantage and the mobility advantage. Now it is going to be LucifroN, and this forces Puppypaw to call back all of his troops to deal with this, something that allows LucifroN to gain so much more map control.
Yep, and it covers his fragile state, right? One of the most dangerous points in the game is the farm transition. So what have you done? You've kind of caught Puppypaw at the tail end of his, and LucifroN is now able to go into his. I think he's actually setting up at the back TC in full force at a critical point where Puppypaw should be punishing this. Instead, he's running around his own base, putting out fires.
It gets worse than that. This force of horsemen pulls Puppypaw's slow-moving army to the north, allowing the LucifroN to breach to the south with his main force, the south where all those farmers are out there exposed.
And Sean, she does half the work on that palisade. She is a siege unit. It seems about right. Dive comes in onto the economy. Panic mode. Puppypaw. He was trying to rush a keep up, but it's too late. He cannot keep pace with this. A multi-pronged assault opening the way. And now, while LucifroN starts to build up reserves of food, Puppypaw is going to have to spend every bit he's got.
LucifroN is doing such a good job stretching out the attention of Puppypaw and exploiting the lack of mobility from that blue army. Combine that with the fact that now he's also up to about 100 troops, 200 population on both players, and a lot of blacksmith upgrades as well. Substantially better upgrades right now on those troops compared to Puppypaw's. This is looking better and better for a yellow player here.
Mango, that's not going to work. He didn't actually use it in time. Puppypaw missed an opportunity to hit the main clump. This is scary, actually. Puppypaw, he has a very big military lead, but keep in mind the Outbags effect isn't going to be there for most of this army. And if he loses the army with this economy, he doesn't have the ability to reboom. So this is a fragile state of affair. Arbitrary are going to stand their ground. They have, of course, got the Pavisas, so not a fight that Puppypaw wants to take. Not to mention Jean on that front line, taking 66% less damage. She shrugs off the entire comp. Puppypaw's only way of solving her right now are spears. Good luck reaching her. Charge in. He needs to be careful. That cleave could just wipe him. At this stage, the way it scales and how tanky she is. There you go. Swipes once, moves away. LucifroN is 82 to 114 military. Puppypaw, however, remember, a big chunk of his economy is down in this area. So if LucifroN ever feels confident enough to just split up and look for clues like he is on the opposite side of the TC right now, you're going to start to see that eco number for Puppypaw fall deeper in a game where he doesn't have the income to reboot.
It's not about the army numbers right now, it's the ability to reproduce that army. Puppypaw had to forfeit so much of his farming eco here. Jeanne d'Arc goes down in this engagement, but look at the army numbers fall for Puppypaw. He is struggling to replenish this force because he's low on gold, he's low on food, whereas on the other side, now LucifroN is in full momentum mode, has 27 horsemen to work with. That wave is about to come in and reach this force of Puppypaw.
This is truly it. The military is about to reach parity, the worst type of situation for Puppypaw right now. Spearman count looks decent, but it's really the arbitrary that matters more than anything else here. Farms also just being destroyed by the cannons. Not to mention they have an ability to snipe out units very casually here. As you said, this is just wave one, and wave two isn't going to play fair. They're going multiple layers, multiple locations, and Jean shows up just in time to clean up the tail end of this fight. There's only a few Spearmen to counter out, and with 800 HP at this stage, she's not going to die fast.
And look at where Puppypaw's army is right now. Everything to the south, you look at the north of his base, 30 horsemen ready to break in. This is what LucifroN has been doing the last few minutes, stretching out the attention of his opponent. And now these raiding parties, they are inflicting more and more damage on Puppypaw's eco. Puppypaw struggling with population here in this third place match. Could have been his best ever performance in a tournament, reaching a third place. It gets more and more difficult with these raids intensifying now.
It's about to get impossible. This many horsemen coming against this many crossbows. The arbitrary still surviving that. This should realistically be the end of the road. I don't see a way in which he's going to have to be able to reboom behind this. Trying to rush a wall up, maybe get a keep, but in this area, it's just not going to be a possibility. And like you said, yeah, it would have been a new best for him. Puppypaw, a player who has been on the rise consistently across the course of the game's release, starting to peak towards the end of 2023. It makes you wonder what 24 could hold for him. But I think one thing that's going to remain true, fairly consistent throughout this year, is that this year has been a big talking point for LucifroN. Sure, this isn't for first place, but he still gets a podium finish. And I think this year has been a record in podium finishes for LucifroN's Age of Empires career.
Puppypaw tying up his best ever performance with a 4th place finish here in the 2023 EGC finals. It's a bit of a silver lining for his season here, but that 3rd place remains elusive for him. Whereas for LucifroN, we talked about him before. He was able to secure a big championship win earlier this year, finishes the season's final event in the 3rd place. I guess both of these players can look back at this matchup and the outcome of this as a silver lining to their 2023 season. Could have been better, but they also finish on a high note to a certain extent, and it's going to be intriguing to see what 2024 holds for both of these players.